Chapter 452. Seeing that they didn't speak, Madara continued to mock them. It's understandable that you would say such stupid things. After all, even these wastes were summoned by you. It can be seen how hungry you are. They were called wastes by name. No matter how much they feared Uchiha Madara, they couldn't bear it. Not to mention, most of them only heard of Uchiha Madara's reputation. Immediately, someone said in a sarcastic tone, "What's there to be proud of for a loser? The times will not stand still. You who once awed an era, may have fallen behind long ago." For these voices, Madara directly burst out with powerful chakra and suppressed them with momentum alone. Oh, the people in this world are divided into two classes. One class is me and some idiot over there, and the other class is you scum. This substantial momentum made everyone's heart sink. With their strength, although they were not suppressed to the point that they couldn't fight, the spiritual oppression still made them can only exert 90% of their strength at most. Uchiha Madara is as domineering as before. The strong people who have seen Madara's strength were all impressed. Those younger generation strong people also looked dignified. This is the power that once awed the warring states? It's really powerful. Huh. That's all you got. Madara's heart was disdainful, and his eyes swept over them, and then he heard some discordant voices. Is that all you got? Your momentum is far worse than that man's. The smile on Madara's mouth froze, and his eyes looked fiercely in the direction of the voice. In that direction, the reaction of the Akatsuki was mediocre, and even a little disappointed. Madara suppressed his anger and said, "Don't think that you can humiliate me wantonly by improving Tobirama's Edo Tensei?" Nagato scolded coldly. "You're too proud. Even my Rinnegan can't fight back in front of that man. What's your Sharingan?" Due to the shock of the Edo Tensei, coupled with Madara's performance just now, everyone realized that the other party actually has the legendary Rinnegan. It turned out to be the eyes of the legendary Sage of the Six Paths. Even the owner of Rinnegan said so. It seems that there are really very powerful people in this era. For their reaction, Madara felt as if he had eaten a fly. This kid got his Rinnegan and still dared to run in front of him? Especially when he saw the shock in Hashirama's eyes, he wanted to shout, "Those are my eyes." However, considering the strangeness of today's resurrection, coupled with the absence of bordered soil and his consciousness, Madara had to endure it. But I'm still so angry. Nagato did have some ideas so that Madara could play a better role in the battle. Therefore, Nagato continued to flatter, "If you were at your peak, you might be able to fight against Shimizu Garashi." Madara was about to attack when he heard a few exclamations from the crowd. Garashi. Shimizu Garashi. These people were the White Fanged, the third Raikage 5 of the Seven Swordsmen, and the third Mizukage. Hearing the third Mizukage's exclamation, Pipa Shirzong asked strangely, "Third Mizukage-sama, were you also killed by Shimizu Garashi?" The third Mizukage's mouth twitched and he immediately took a deep breath. "Yes, 2 years after you." Madara looked at him with scrutinizing eyes. "You're the kid who followed White Lotus at the 5 Kages tournament? I didn't expect you to be a Mizukage, but it's nothing to kill a kid like you." Hearing the disdain in Madara's voice, the third Mizukage once again realized that Madara's betrayal was not without reason. This mouth is too annoying. Moreover, although he is a junior in terms of age, he should be much older than Uchiha Madara, the bastard who died early. How impudent. Looking at Madara, the third Mizukage said in a flat tone, "When he killed me, he was only 14 years old, and he did it while surrounded by thousands of Kirin ninjas. Although he was killed by Shimizu Garashi, he didn't have much hatred for Shimizu Garashi in his heart. During the war, it's understandable to do anything from your own standpoint, but correspondingly, you must bear the consequences. Therefore, he didn't think there was anything wrong with Shimizu Garashi's revenge. Compared with Shimizu Garashi, Madara was more annoying. Of course, the premise is that he didn't know that Rin was not dead. After listening to him, the people who were watching the show widened their eyes. 14 years old? That's too exaggerated. What a terrible talent. Killing a Kage is nothing, but if you add the age limit of 14 years old in front of it, it's very shocking, not to mention that he did it while surrounded by enemies. Hashirama exclaimed. "That's amazing, Madara. When we were 14 years old, we were still fighting." "Shut up." Madara scolded, and the experience of fighting Hashirama was definitely the black history of his life. As for Shimizu Garashi, he heard White Zetsu's report, but he was not so surprised. Seeing that Madara didn't seem to be moved, Nagato turned his eyes and looked at Hashirama, who was smirking and said, "Speaking of which, our enemy has a lot to do with you. He is the disciple of your granddaughter." He developed Mokutan on his own. Like you, he suppressed the Kyubi. He was even crowned as the god of ninja at the age of 15. Hashirama's distorted expression was mixed with surprise. Katsuma has such an excellent disciple. Tobarama was also surprised. He developed Mokutan on his own, and at such a young age he had the same title as my brother. Of course, he knew under what circumstances the title of the god of ninja could be obtained, by defeating the whole world or by making the whole world gasp in awe. Hashirama rubbed his hands and smiled. It's always a little uneasy to be related to Katsuma. The Shimizu Garashi you mentioned. Is he reliable? It's not so much reliable, it's better to say that he's perfect. Nagato said with emotion. Whether it's character or strength, he's recognized as perfect. He's even better than you and more suitable for the title of the god of ninja. This time Madara finally couldn't stand it. Better than Hashirama. Do you really know this guy? Do you know how strong he is? How dare you say such a thing? Hashirama touched his head with some embarrassment. I'm actually just SOSO. You shut up. Madara scolded. You're the only one who defeated me. He's stronger than you. What am I? No matter how powerful a person is, when it comes to the people he cares about, he will be blinded. Nagato sighed in his heart, but he said, if you want to prove yourself to Hashirama, I will soon give you this opportunity to fight Shimizu Shushi with all your strength. Madara also understood Nagato's calculation at this time, but he didn't care. He just snorted. How can he compare with me? Chapter 453. Hashirama also heard something wrong at this time and hurriedly dissuaded him. Madara, don't be fooled, this guy wants to use your power to destroy Wood Leaf. Madara's eyes were calm. Oh, that's right, I was going to destroy Wood Leaf. Hashirama? As I said, with Shimizu Garashi, Wood Leaf is not so easy to destroy. Nagato shook his head slightly. We're just going to catch a few tailed beasts. Catch a few tailed beasts? Madara's eyes were dignified. It took so much effort to summon them just to catch the tailed beasts. It seems that Akatsuki should be on the way to complete the Jubi. But what about the bordered soil in his consciousness? What happened during the time before his resurrection? Wood Leaf in front of the cemetery of martyrs. In addition to Fugaku, there was also Tsunade, who returned to the village because of the outbreak of the demon disaster. Checking the tombs of the first and second Naruto, of course, it can't be done by the Uchiha. Otherwise, if something goes wrong with the tombs, they will have to bear the blame. You mean, the tombs of the second grandpa may have been robbed? Tsunade's face was very ugly. It's Garashi-sama who asked us to inform you. With the style of the Akatsuki, it's natural for them to seek the bones of the two Naruto after getting the Edo Tensei. Fugaku said. Using Garashi as a shield, Tsunade's face reluctantly looked better. Then let's do it. Soon, the tombs of the two Naruto were dug up and everyone moved the coffins out. Tsunade touched one of the coffins sadly, and then her face changed. She could see that some parts of the coffin had less dust than other places, as if it had been opened not long ago. Damn bastard. Tsunade already had the answer in her heart, but she still pushed the coffin open. Sure enough, a large part of the bones lying in the coffin were missing. Damn bastard, don't let me find you. Tsunade shouted angrily and clenched her fist, and suddenly a sound burst out. Compared to Tsunade's anger, everyone else was in a heavy mood. The two Naruto corpses being stolen meant that they might have to face the two Naruto's Edo Tensei. The second Naruto was one thing, but the first Naruto was the same as Garashi, a legendary figure with the title of the God of Ninjas. Could they handle it? The excavation of the tomb attracted many onlookers, including Asuma and the others. This is troublesome. Don't tell me we have to deal with the first generation's Edo Tensei? Although Garashi is very strong, the Edo Tensei is said to be able to revive infinitely. Ignoring the discussion of the crowd, Kakashi walked straight towards an Uchiha behind Fugaku with his head lowered. Bordered Soil, it's you, right? Bordered Soil trembled and slowly raised his head. It's me. Hearing the conversation between the two, the focus of the scene immediately shifted from the original coffin to Bordered Soil and Kakashi. Well, there's also Fugaku who is suspected of covering up. Seeing everyone looking at him with shock and suspicion, Fugaku hurriedly explained, Bordered Soil was caught by Garashi-sama, and he asked me to take him with me temporarily. Everyone reluctantly accepted this reason. No matter how bold Fugaku is, he wouldn't dare to fake Garashi, right? Kakashi didn't care about Fugaku's answer. He just looked at Bordered Soil with a complicated expression, and then couldn't help but punch him. You bastard, why did you do this? Why did you betray the village? Bordered Soil didn't resist. After being knocked to the ground, he stood up unsteadily. Kakashi grabbed him by the collar and shouted, "Answer me." Bordered Soil didn't wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, he just stared at Kakashi and said in a hoarse voice, "If you could protect Rin, I wouldn't have become like this." Kakashi's body trembled. "What did you say?" Bordered Soil sneered, "I told you to protect Rin. What did you do, pierce through her chest with Raikiri?" Kakashi was silent. He did owe Rin a lot. Although Rin didn't die, the person who did this wasn't him, but Senpai. Not to mention, although Rin is alive, he wasted 8 years of his life. After Rin wakes up, she might feel that this world is very strange. You didn't protect Rin. I always thought that my biggest mistake was to overestimate your ability. Bordered Soil had a complicated expression. But in fact, my biggest mistake was to underestimate Senpai's ability. If I could have trusted Senpai and taken the initiative to contact and ask, the later development wouldn't have become like this. Kakashi, who was hit by a counterattack, was at a loss. This is still my fault? At this moment, more than a dozen umbu wearing animal masks appeared around them. Then the encirclement opened up a gap. 2 old men came out of the gap. Koharu Mitokado Hamura? Tsunade on the side frowned slightly. She really didn't have a good impression of these 2 Naruto advisors. Although they are fundamentally different from people like Danzo, their standards as Naruto advisors are really poor, stubborn, inflexible, incompetent, and muddle-headed. The most important thing is that their brains are sick. As for the reason, they didn't support such an excellent disciple like her, but ran to support Danzo instead. Isn't that just crazy? The 2 Naruto advisors didn't know that Tsunade was criticizing them, and said with dissatisfaction, "You met such a cruel villain, but you didn't catch him, and you even chatted as if nothing happened. What are you thinking?" Kakashi also wanted to argue for Bordered Soil. Bordered Soil is not that kind of ferocious. He's not ferocious? Koharu interrupted directly and then asked in a cold voice, "Bordered Soil Uchiha, did you do the Kyuubi rebellion 7 years ago?" Bordered Soil was silent for a moment and said frankly, "Yes, it was me." As his voice fell, the crowd was in an uproar and everyone's eyes changed. Although some people have said that Bordered Soil was the culprit behind the Kyuubi rebellion, after all, there was no conclusion. But now Bordered Soil Uchiha himself admitted it. Thinking of the fear and loss caused by the Kyuubi rebellion, everyone shouted angrily, "Kill him, kill him. Kill this demon in human skin. I am indeed unforgivable, and I have no face to ask for your forgiveness, but..." Bordered Soil Uchiha looked at Koharu and Kakashi like a knife and sneered, "Are you and that Naruto clean? I told you in advance about the Kyuubi rebellion in exchange for Minato's downfall. You are in a hurry to arrest me because you are worried that I will tell the truth, right?" Bordered Soil Uchiha's words were like a bomb in the deep sea, blowing up everyone's thoughts. Naruto, Sama and the 2 advisors did such a thing. Because of Danzo's bad reputation, no one denied it immediately, and even the eyes looking at the 2 advisors became strange. Being looked at with such eyes, the 2 advisors Naruto only felt their blood stagnate, and even their voices were trembling. They glared at Bordered Soil Uchiha and accused him. "You villain, how dare you slander us? I even admitted to manipulating the Kyuubi rebellion. Do I need to slander you?" Bordered Soil Uchiha's tone was contemptuous, but he sighed in his heart, "Senpai, this is the only thing I can do for you." Chapter 454. Of course Bordered Soil knew. He only revealed the news to Danzo. As for whether the 2 of them participated or not, he didn't know. But that's not important. The important thing is that these 2 consultants are too much of a hindrance. Even from the standpoint of the enemy, it can be seen that they are a hindrance to Konoha. Senpai is such a kind person, even Danzo can tolerate him, so he definitely won't do anything to them. Bordered Soil thought so, and his eyes gradually became firm. "So, let me be the bad guy." Mitokado snorted coldly. "You're worthy of being a sinner. Even now you still want to divide Woodleaf. Don't use your dirty heart to guess our thoughts, even if Danzo..." Koharu paused and continued. "Some of his methods may be radical, but there is absolutely no doubt about his love for Woodleaf." Hearing them mention Danzo, Obito's eyes flashed. "You're asking for it. Can you guarantee that Danzo has not done anything to harm Woodleaf?" Bordered Soil asked. Of course, I can guarantee that Danzo has never done anything to intentionally harm Konoha." Although she trusted Danzo, Koharu was still careful. Unintentional harm didn't count. Bordered Soil understood her meaning, but he didn't care and asked around, "Are there any Yamanaka ninjas here? Please use the heart transmission technique to show everyone the memories in the depths of my mind." Seeing that he was so sure that he was even willing to show his memories, the two consultants faintly felt that something was wrong. But if they stopped him now, it would seem that they were afraid. Let me do it, ordinary people can't do this kind of thing. In the crowd, a man with a firm face came out. It's Yamanaka Inoichi-san. Someone around recognized him. As the head of the Yamanaka clan, and an elite jonin who guided Garashi, he can naturally be trusted. Inoichi walked in front of bordered soil and put his right hand on his forehead. The next moment, an image appeared in everyone's mind. An extremely wretched face opened its red lips, and kissed the photo in its hand. At the same time, a disdainful gaze was cast in from outside the window, as if looking at scum and perverts. Then there was no then. The transmission was cut off. Bordered soil roared in shame and anger, "Bastard, it's not this." In the crowd, Red and Mute felt a chill. What a pervert. Asma patted Kakashi's shoulder. It must be hard for you to be in the same group as a pervert. The scene of Lin Fan dying on the spot caused the anger in the hearts of the surrounding people to subside slightly. They were also somewhat doubtful. Was this kind of idiot really the culprit behind the nine-tailed beast's chaos? Could there be a mistake somewhere? The corner of Hai Yi's mouth twitched. Then why don't you try to recall what you want me to show? Bordered soil took a deep breath and began to recall. The screen was reconnected. Under the night sky, Danzo looked at the masked man in front of him. Controlling the QB? Why should I believe the words of a sneaky rat? Because of my eyes. The masked man's tone was indifferent, and his pupils quickly changed into the shape of a windmill. Mangekyo Sharingan. Danzo's pupils shrank. Do you understand now? I do have the power to control the QB. The masked man said. Why are you telling me this? Also, aren't you worried that I'll call someone to catch you now? I'm not wrong about you. I can see ambition in your eyes. Then you might be wrong. As the voice fell, hundreds of wind blades flew from behind the masked man. However, the masked man seemed to have no physical body, and the wind blades passed through his body. What? Danzo shouted in disbelief. Don't test me. I'm not sent by Namikaze Minato or Shimizu Garashi to test you. The masked man said. Danzo coldly snorted and released the summoning, sending the nightmare taper back. Tell me, what do you want? I'm here to help you become Naruto. Danzo calmly asked. How are you going to help me? I'll control the QB to attack Woodleaf. You can use this information to change your image. For example, in front of Woodleaf's higher-ups, you can predict that the Uchiha may control the QB, or you can prepare in advance to save people in the chaos to increase your popularity. The masked man said, as for using the QB to frame Namikaze Minato, you should be very familiar with this, so I won't say more. Danzo didn't comment. What's in it for you to help me like this? Don't get me wrong, I just want to destroy Woodleaf and I fully believe in your ability. The masked man laughed. If you become Naruto, I believe that in a few years, you can lead Woodleaf to destruction. Danzo's mouth twitched slightly. Then you'll be disappointed again. I'll only bring new life to Woodleaf. In short, happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. The video was cut off and the crowd was in a commotion. What? Naruto-sama actually betrayed Woodleaf for his own benefit. He still calls him Naruto? He's clearly a thief who stole Naruto's position. Maybe the Naruto-sama in his memory is the enemy's transformation technique, deliberately acting for us. Don't wash it, you didn't see such a big nightmare taper. Yandame-sama, Naruto was really wronged. Koharu's eyes darkened. Danzo really betrayed Woodleaf. How did he become like this? Hamura was in a bad mood, and he could already feel the suspicion and rejection in the eyes of the people around him. The two of them supported Danzo, and one of the important reasons was that he was far-sighted and predicted the Uchiha's turmoil in advance. But the result was that Danzo cooperated with the enemy? From the perspective of others, most of them were already suspicious of their role in the QB's chaos. Thinking of this, Hamura took a deep breath. We didn't know Danzo. But before he could finish his words, Bordered Soil mocked. Now you say you don't know, where's the courage you gave him before? Enough. Koharu shouted coldly. I will bear the consequences of my own wrongdoings, but it's not your turn to show off here. How do you plan to bear the consequences? I will voluntarily resign from my position as a consultant, retire to the mountains and never ask about Woodleaf again. Hamura sighed. I will also resign from my position as a consultant. Koharu looked back and said anxiously, Hamura, you don't have to do this because of me. Hamura shook his head slightly. This is my own decision. He could see clearly that after today's matter was exposed, they were bound to suffer a lot of criticism. If they quit now, at least they could save some of their reputation. After saying that, he looked at Bordered Soil calmly. As for your matter, we won't interfere, and I believe that Shimizu Garashi will give us a satisfactory answer. Chapter 455. By the time Garashi returned, the crowd had mostly dispersed. However, the impact of today's incident had only just begun to ferment. Naruto, who everyone placed their hopes on, turned out to be Woodleaf's greatest sin, and Naruto's advisors were also suspected to be in deep trouble. Also, Danzo, who even the enemy looked down on, was able to sit in Naruto's position for 7 years, so there must be something wrong with the other higher-ups. Or rather, who else in Woodleaf's higher-ups were clean? Cemetery of Martyrs. After learning about what happened from others, even Garashi was a little surprised. He did intend to scheme against the 2 Naruto advisors, wanting to use Danzo's influence to remove them. But he hadn't even started yet. The 2 of them were already wiped out by Bordered Soil. Since when did Bordered Soil become so strong? Seeing his senpai looking at him, Bordered Soil thought his senpai was angry and couldn't help but sigh. Senpai, you're too kind, that's why you let that group of trash steal your position. Even if you blame me, I won't regret what I did today. Mizuki nodded in agreement. Garashi was too lenient with those people, that's why they had the chance to stir up trouble. From now on, let him, the man who vowed to become the shadow under the wood leaf, clear the obstacles in the darkness for Garashi. Garashi smiled in his mind, but on the surface he sighed and shook his head, then looked at Tsunade. Senpai, I might have to use the first and second Hokage-sama's bones for an experiment. Tsunade understood what he meant. This was to test whether the Akatsuki had already started the Edo Tensei. So she just sighed. Since the Edo Tensei is unavoidable, it's better to have it on our side than to let Grandpa and the others be used as a weapon against Woodleaf. Of course, the Edo Tensei couldn't be carried out in front of a large group of people. Everyone went to the back of the mountain and found a relatively secluded place. After preparing the bones, offerings and formations, Garashi began to form hand seals. The formation flickered as if it was pulling souls from the underworld. However, the light only flickered a few times before completely dimming. Summoning failed. Garashi said with a solemn expression, "Sure enough, Akatsuki has resurrected the 2 of you through Edo Tensei." Tsunade stomped hard, the ground cracked, and the cracks spread quickly like a spider web. "Damn Akatsuki." Garashi said in a deep voice, "We must convey the information of Edo Tensei to the other shinobi villages as soon as possible." Sand Crypsis, Kazekage Building. Kazekage-sama, according to our investigation, the people of Akatsuki organization may still be in the Rain Country. Raza looked up at Marky, who was reporting. "Who asked you to investigate their whereabouts?" Marky was taken aback. "Gaara was captured by them. Don't we need to find out more information to rescue him?" Raza's tone was indifferent. "We can't let the village's precious combat power be damaged for a single Jinchuriki." Kazekage-sama, you. Marky looked at Raza in shock. He knew that although the Kazekage-sama was strict with Gaara, he actually cared about Gaara very much in his heart. Not to mention he vaguely heard some gossip. The Kazekage-sama worked very late these days and slept directly in the office when he was tired. But in fact it was because he didn't dare to go home. At this moment, Pakura came in and reported, "Kazekage-sama, there's news from Woodleaf, they hope you can log into the dream world." Log into the dream world. Raza was a little puzzled, but he still reluctantly pulled himself together. "I see. Rock Crypsis." Anoki had woken up, but when he woke up, he saw a devastated Rock Crypsis. Compared with other shinobi villages, Rock Crypsis, which was attacked twice in a row, obviously suffered more losses. Such a change made Anoki, who had always refused to admit his old age, hunch his back a little. At this moment, Kitsuchi looked at his father in shock and asked, "What? The whole village migrated to Woodleaf?" Anoki said calmly, "You don't have to repeat it, I'm not deaf. But this is really amazing." Kitsuchi shook his head, his eyes full of disbelief. Alliance is not something that can be done with words, it has to be proven with actual actions. Anoki said. "But the dignity of Rock Crypsis?" A Jonin hesitated and asked. "The dignity of Rock Crypsis has been shattered by the Akatsuki's 2 attacks, now we have to consider survival." Anoki said firmly. Kitsuchi whispered, "It's already to this extent? It will only be more serious than you think." Anoki was about to say something when a Jonin suddenly came in. "Sachikage-sama, Woodleaf has important information." Dream World. As soon as Empress Shomiai logged in, she was sent to a certain space by an irresistible force. Surrounded by endless stars, A long table was placed in the middle, and many people were already sitting at the table. For example, Garashi, and the Kagare and guards of various villages. In addition to these acquaintances, there were many unfamiliar faces in the space. Most of them were more reserved, but there was a faint excitement in their expressions. "What the hell is this?" Ao, who came in before her, introduced with a shocked expression. "This is a room built by Garashi-sama through the dream world. It can gather people from all over the world." Garashi was not arrogant and took the initiative to explain. "Because the 5 Kage conference was used by the enemy, I focused on solving the problem of cross-regional communication in the dream world." Although others had heard similar words, no matter how many times they heard it, their hearts were incomparably shocked. Cross-regional communication like this without space restrictions is really amazing. After waiting for a while, almost all the people arrived. Garashi said, "Today, I invited you mainly to share some information with you." With that, Garashi looked at a person in the seat. "Bordered soil, you tell them." "Bordered soil? Uchiha bordered soil." Everyone's expression changed, and they also roughly knew what happened in Woodleaf. A frowned and asked, "Brother Garashi, he is..." Garashi shook his head slightly. "Don't be impatient, listen to him first." Obito's expression was neither sad nor happy as he told Shueisha the information he had told him before. However, they obviously didn't have as much patience as Garashi. When he heard that it was him who proposed to capture Jinchuriki and even extract the tailed beasts in their bodies, he finally couldn't help it and stood up. However, someone was faster than him. Raza rushed up and punched him, knocking him to the ground. "You bastard, Gar is only 7 years old." Bordered soil didn't resist, but silently endured. After being punched more than a dozen times in a row, he calmly said, "It takes 3 days for the Akatsuki to extract a tailed beast, 6-tailed beast is 18 days, and without me and Black Zetsu, the progress will be slowed down. The Akatsuki can't waste more than 20 days to extract tailed beasts at this critical moment. Your son should still be safe." Chapter 456. Hearing Bordered Soil say that Gaara won't die, Raza's hand movements finally stopped. However, he didn't give Bordered Soil a good look. He threw Bordered Soil to the ground and returned to his seat. Bordered Soil didn't think much of it. He stood up as if nothing had happened, returned to his seat and continued, "Although capturing Jinchuriki to summon the Jubi was Madara's plan, the Akatsuki's people are now in a difficult situation, and they have completed 2/3 of the progress. There is no reason for them to give up at this time. Once they summon the Jubi, they can easily defeat us with its power." Everyone only felt that they had nowhere to complain. "You ambitious people are messing around, but why don't you clean up the mess? Also, it's really bad luck for Madara to choose you as his executor." Trying to calm down the desire to complain, AI asked, "Is the Jubi really as powerful as you say? Even if it is several times stronger than the Kyubi, with the strength of Garashi-san, you can easily suppress it, right?" The rest of the people nodded in agreement. "The Kyubi is so powerful, but isn't he the same as a dog in front of Garashi? In the myths and legends, the Sage of the 6 Paths saved the world. Since he saved the world, there must be a crisis of destroying the world, and this crisis comes from the Jubi." Bordered Soil emphasized, "It can destroy the world. Now you know how powerful it is, right?" However, everyone had a calm expression on their faces. Destroying the world, they can hear this more than a dozen times a year. Especially Inoki, the disdain in his eyes overflowed. The Box of Bliss was said to be the artifact of the Sage of the 6 Paths, and it had the power to destroy the world. But what was the result? On the day it was unsealed, it was scared away by Shimizu Garashi. So this kind of words can't be taken lightly. How can the world be destroyed so easily? Seeing that everyone didn't believe him at all, Bordered Soil blinked sincerely. "The Jubi is really strong, believe me." Everyone looked perfunctory. Got it, got it." At this moment, a bell-like voice sounded. "Everyone, what he said is true. We are facing the crisis of the world's destruction." Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. The person who spoke was a beautiful woman who looked dignified and holy. "You are?" AI asked. "This is Her Excellency the Witch from the Land of Demons. She has the ability of prophecy." Garashi took the initiative to introduce her. "Country of Demons?" Empress Shomiai suddenly understood. Were those unfamiliar faces from other small countries? Which? Inoki pondered and said, "I've also heard about this. I heard that the Miko of the Land of Demons has the ability of prophecy." Raza asked thoughtfully, "Your Excellency, did you foresee something?" Maitreya nodded worriedly. "I saw the terrible scene of everything withering and the world changing. The whole world was falling under the ravages of the 10 tails. No one spoke, but their eyes were filled with suspicion. Amiko, who they had never heard of before, suddenly stood up and said that she foretold the end of the world. Even if Tsuchikage and Garashi endorsed her, it was still difficult to believe her. Mithria sighed. She knew that this would be the result. Moreover, this was not the first time such an encounter happened. 8 years ago, at the peace ceremony of the Third World War, she found the 5 Kages at that time and explained the disaster she predicted to them. However, no one believed her and they didn't even want to verify it. Sure enough, a powerful and humble person like Garashi-sama is just an exception. At this time, Garashi said, "The dream world is located in the spiritual dimension. Maybe I can try to project the picture that Your Excellency predicted. It's just that this process may be peeking into the heart, and I need Your Excellency's consent." Peeking into the heart. Mithria's face was slightly red, and then she said generously, "I have no problem, Garashi-sama, you don't have to worry." "Sorry for the offense," Garashi said, and with a light tap of his finger, several scenes were projected in front of him. On the dry and dead earth, a humanoid monster like a dead tree trampled wantonly, and super large-scale Baijidama was shot from its mouth at will, easily erasing a country from the map. Tens of thousands of ninjas formed a coalition army and worked together, but it was useless. No matter how many ninjas there were, they were not the opponent of that monster. The coalition army was defeated easily. In the end, the whole world was quiet. A giant tree stood on the ground and all life was silent, hanging on the tree like a cocoon. Looking at this horrible scene, Kitsuchi asked in a hoarse voice, "This is our future?" The leaders of the small countries were also frightened. They originally had the idea that, if the sky falls, there will be tall people to hold it up, and sit and watch the 5 great ninja villages and the Akatsuki fight each other. But judging from the scenes of the prophecy, the Jubi was completely indiscriminate. The 5 great ninja villages could at least resist a little, but they were wiped out without even making a sound. The demon disaster is not over yet, and the end of the world is coming? What should we do? What the hell should we do? Looking at their panicked appearance, Garashi chuckled. The prophecy is a good excuse. In fact, even Mithria herself didn't know that the scenes of her prophecy were made by Garashi through Morio. After all, the Miko and Morio were originally 2 sides of the same coin. As for the content of the prophecy, Garashi slightly modified the plot he saw in his previous life and showed it to her. Anyway, the prophecy should be vague. If she could see the complete picture, it would be wrong. It is because of such a terrible scene that I found Garashi-sama and asked him to convey this prophecy to everyone. Mithria bit her red lips and said seriously, "In the face of such a world-destroying disaster, we must work together." So that's how it is. Everyone suddenly understood and solved the doubts in their hearts. They also felt strange before. How could these people from small countries be invited by Garashi? At this time, Wuwei suddenly said, "Garashi-sama, can you divide the area around Woodleaf City for the Kusanagi village?" This kind of request should be made to the daimyo of the Land of Fire. But Wuwei completely ignored the existence of the daimyo, and the rest of the people didn't find it strange. During the war, the authority of the daimyo is almost infinitely reduced. Therefore, it has always been the 5 Kages convention that determines the structure of the ninja world, not the 5 Great Convention. Garashi pretended to be surprised and asked, "Wuwei, what are you doing?" Wuwei sighed. "Just dealing with the demon disaster has already made the Kusanagi village anxious, not to mention the Jubi. If we want to survive in this violent era, the Kusanagi village can only pray for protection, but I also know that it is difficult for the Woodleaf to spare extra energy to take care of the Kusanagi village. Even if Garashi agrees, other people in the Woodleaf City won't agree, and the way to make the protection reasonable is to become part of the Woodleaf City." Wuwei stared at Garashi. "So, I want to take the Kusanagi village to join the Woodleaf City." Chapter 457. Everyone was shocked. Wuwei actually wants to merge Kusanagi into Woodleaf. If Garashi agrees, this will be the first case of a country dying in 20 years, and they asked for it on their own initiative. Will Garashi-sama agree? Many people looked at him nervously, but before Garashi could speak, another voice came from the side of Hokage. "Garashi-sama, Hokage also requests to merge into Woodleaf." Everyone felt their heads buzzing. Another ninja village, and it's Hokage, one of the stronger ninja villages. Has the situation become so bad? What shocked them even more was that Garashi didn't directly agree, but frowned slightly in thought. This discovery made them wake up instantly. Yes, their village is a treasure in their eyes, but in the eyes of the other side, it may be a trouble and a burden. Didn't you see that Garashi-sama was reluctant? Thinking of this, they all shouted one by one, Garashi, Sama, Takajin also requests to join. Frost Country requests to join. Their power and status comes from the village. If the village is gone, they will have nothing. So, of course, they want to ensure the continuation of the village. Of course, they also have their own thoughts. First, they ask Woodleaf for protection, and after the disaster they will find an excuse to be independent. The other 4 ninja villages had complicated eyes. Of course, they can't cry and beg to join Woodleaf like these small ninja villages. After all, the 5 ninja villages have been holding grudges for a long time. Joining together is the best they can do. Join Woodleaf? They didn't even think about this kind of thing. It's just that if these small ninja villages are merged into Woodleaf, will Woodleaf and the other 4 ninja villages be the only 2 ninja villages? Unexpectedly, Shushi did not answer. Instead, he comforted them. Don't be afraid, everyone. The scene that Her Excellency the Witch prophesied is only one of the many possibilities in the future. The future is not set in stone. As long as everyone works together, the future can be rewritten. I once stopped a calamity that Her Excellency which had predicted. Maitreya nodded vigorously and said gratefully, it was all thanks to Lord Garashi. Otherwise, the ninja world will face another great crisis. Everyone sighed with emotion when they heard this. As expected of Lord Garashi, they had never heard him mention such achievements before. He was too humble. That's right, the premise of destroying the world is that Akatsuki can summon the Jubi. AI said forcefully, but we have already seen through Akatsuki's conspiracy. With the strength of the whole village, we will never let Akatsuki take away the Jinchuriki. Empress Shomiai also nodded. With Garashi there, I don't believe that the Akatsuki can take the Kyubi Jinchuriki from Woodleaf. Everyone was overjoyed as they listened, as if the crisis had been averted. Yes, no matter how strong Akatsuki is, he can't be the opponent of the entire ninja world. The closest they came to success was when we didn't know about it, and we were transferred away from the 5 Kages. Now that we know their purpose and are prepared, it's impossible for them to lose. However, Garashi poured a basin of cold water on them. No, they can do it. If they continue to hold this attitude of contempt, that kind of future will become a reality. What? Empress Shomiai couldn't believe it. Don't tell me that even you, Garashi, don't have the confidence to keep the Kyubi Jinchuriki? Let me say it. Bordered Soil said in a deep voice, Kyubi can be replaced by the Jinjio and Jinjio brothers. They have eaten the Kyubi's flesh and blood, and they have the Kyubi chakra in their bodies. Haven't those 2 been dead for many years? AI frowned. Beside him, Tsukasa's pupils suddenly shrank. Edo Tensei? Bordered Soil nodded. 4 years ago, Akatsuki got the Edo Tensei from a trader of Woodleaf. Garashi added, the tombs of first Hokage and second Hokage were dug up. I tested it before I came and I couldn't use the Edo Tensei to resurrect the 2 Naruto, which means that they have been summoned by Akatsuki. Hearing that first Hokage Naruto was resurrected, many people swallowed subconsciously. Although they haven't seen first Hokage Naruto fight, they know how strong Garashi is. Possessing Mokutan, beating the Kyubi, and being crowned as the god of ninja, there is no way for them not to associate Garashi with such similar experience. At this time, Bordered Soil added, Uchiha Madara's bones were originally in my hands, but in order to gain their trust, I took the initiative to hand over the bones. That is to say, in addition to first Hokage Naruto, we may also have to face Uchiha Madara. At this moment, everyone wanted to step on Bordered Soil's disgusting face with their clogs. Can't this bastard do something humane? Originally, their biggest reliance was Garashi, but now, Akatsuki suddenly has 2 more people on the same level as Garashi. How can they fight this? Bordered Soil continued. In addition to the 2 Naruto, many famous Jonin tombs were also dug up. Don't stare, you are the same. AI slapped the table and stood up. Tell me clearly, what do you mean we are the same? You don't think that Akatsuki is only targeting Woodleaf, do you? Bordered Soil sighed. If I'm not wrong, the ancestors of each village should have been resurrected. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Although there was no air conditioning in the dream world for them to breathe, they still had their mouths wide open. Everyone felt powerless. In addition to Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, they have to face all the strong people since the founding of the village. What kind of hell difficulty is this? Are you kidding? We have to fight the elders of the village. I heard that the body resurrected through the Edo Tensei has an immortal body and unlimited chakra. How can we fight this? In this oppressive atmosphere, someone said in a low voice, since the Jubi can only be summoned by gathering the power of 9-tailed beasts, shouldn't the safest way be to kill one-tailed beast? As the voice fell, the noise around them became quiet. In fact, many people thought of this, but they didn't dare to say it out loud because of the attitude of the two villages. The Hachibi's Jinchuriki is Reikij's younger brother, and the Gobi's Jinchuriki is Tsuchikij's right-hand man. Killing them, the two Kages will never agree. Sure enough, AI stared at the person who made this proposal. What did you say? The person who was stared at by AI braced himself and said, for the overall situation, some sacrifices. AI picked up the table and threw it at him. Screw the overall situation, I don't care about this. It's not wise to drink poison to quench thirst. Garashi said in a deep voice, at least for now, the initiative is still in our hands, and once the Jinchuriki is killed, the time and place of the Jubi's resurrection is uncertain, which is equivalent to giving up the initiative. What if the Jubi is resurrected in front of the Akatsuki? Chapter 458. After Garashi spoke, those voices quickly died down. Indeed, killing the Jinchuriki only pushed back the time of doomsday slightly, and from the result, it boosted the Akatsuki's arrogance. Bordered Soil's eyes moved and he had an idea. Let Senpai freeze a Jinchuriki, throw it into his space, and then blind him or dig out his eyes and give them to Senpai for safekeeping. Without the key to open the space, the Akatsuki's plan to capture the bijou will never succeed. However, he knew that others would not believe him. If he said it out loud, they would think that he was deliberately deceiving them. Of course, there was one more thing. He knew that Senpai would not agree with him. Seeing everyone's worried look, AI smiled and said, what's there to be afraid of? The soul summoned by Edo Tensei can only stay in the main world for a while, and after the soul returns to the underworld, it can't be summoned again for a short time. So, now we have the initiative, the Akatsuki should be anxious. Indeed, as long as we hold on for a few days it will be fine. Raza said in a deep voice, but the Akatsuki must be aware of this, and in the next few days, we will face the most ferocious attack from the enemy. Everyone was shocked, for the enemy with an immortal body, the most ferocious attack is undoubtedly a suicide attack. Those ninjas resurrected through Edo Tensei are powerful, coupled with a suicide attack, it is really difficult to deal with them. With the power of the Akatsuki now, a single ninja village can't be their opponent, we must unite. Anoki looked around at everyone and emphasized, not the kind of alliance that helps each other, but the kind that gathers the power of all ninja villages in one place and integrates all the resources. Many people nodded seriously, anyone with a discerning eye can see that an alliance is the trend. But the question was, where was this one place that they had gathered at? Although he knew the answer in his heart, Raza still pretended to be puzzled and asked, where is the appropriate place to gather? Anoki knocked on the table. From the map, it should be Woodleaf that occupies the center of the ninja world. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Wuei's mocking voice came from the side. Tsuchikage-sama, you don't seem to be sincere, do you? For this traitor who once betrayed Rock Crypsis, Anoki naturally didn't have any good feelings. How am I not sincere? Wuei shook his finger and said, everyone is seeking protection from Woodleaf. Our price is to merge with Woodleaf. Why do you think you can do it just by shouting slogans? You should know that Akatsuki's next target is Yunin and Rock Crypsis. Even people like us who were caught in the crossfire know to merge, but you people who are the main targets of Akatsuki's attack are not doing anything? Anoki's face was gloomy. The migration of the entire village to Woodleaf was a decision he had made before he joined the society. For this reason, he had also strongly suppressed the dissenting voices in the village. However, Kusagakur and Nebula Shinobi were the first to raise the price, which was very unbearable. Anoki took a deep breath and said loudly, this is not a request but for the overall situation. If Han and the Hachibi Jinchuriki are taken away, it will be a disaster for the entire human race. No matter how much you say, it can't change the essence of asking Woodleaf for help. Wuei shook his head. Do you think that with such an empty slogan, you can make Woodleaf agree to support us? After all, there are only a few people who can see the overall situation like us. Most people can only see the hatred between the villages. In this case, a forced union will only make the accumulated contradictions between the villages erupt. So, we can't force the people below to understand the overall situation. It should be us who should agree with the overall situation, and the overall situation we should understand is to make everyone a family. Anoki frowned. Are all the kids nowadays so difficult to deal with? She actually used this kind of sophistry to refute his tried and tested moral high ground. Hearing this, the small ninja villages that were shouting to merge before started to shout. I think what Wuei said makes sense. Why should some people be special? If we become a family, we can help each other and understand each other. They are also worried that the merger will be questioned by the people in the village. After all, not everyone can have their vision. But if Rock Crypsis and even the other 4 ninja villages are involved, it will be different. The people in the village will only think that they worked hard to get the same treatment as the other 4 ninja villages. Listening to them fanning the flames here, the other 3 ninja villages also frowned. Although they are close to Garashi, they absolutely don't want to lose the independence of the village. Just when the scene was out of control, Garashi shook his head slightly. There is no need to talk about merging into Woodleaf. A family made up of strangers will only make people feel uncomfortable. After setting this tone, Garashi said, however, what Tsuchikage-sama and Wu-wei said is not unreasonable. We must unite, and pay attention to regulating the gap between the villages and consider everyone's feelings. So, my idea is to form a ninja alliance that includes the entire ninja world. Ninja alliance. Anoki frowned slightly. What's the difference between this and what they said before? The difference is that before, Woodleaf was the leader, so all the villages were integrated into Woodleaf and became a real family. Garashi paused and continued to explain. The Ninja Alliance model is to maintain the independence of the villages. All the villages are equal, and there is only one alliance government to regulate the relationship, just like neighbors and the village council. Everyone was faintly moved, only Reikage was confused. Then we can't fight in the future. I mean, in case there is a conflict between the villages, can we still start a war? Of course not. If there is a conflict we can solve it. Why start a war? Garashi shook his head and said, the original intention of the Ninja Alliance is to achieve peace, to achieve real peace. Peace. Hearing this strange and distant word, everyone was in a trance. Is it really possible to achieve peace? The first Naruto ended the warring states and created the era of Ninja Village, which was also considered a symbol of the era of peace. Unfortunately, peace was just a flash in the pan, and after the death of the first Naruto, war came back in a more ferocious manner. However, Wu-wei was not one of those who had doubts. He never doubted that Garashi could achieve peace. Thinking of that night 12 years ago, he was so excited that he couldn't control himself. The dreamer can only find his way under the moonlight, and his punishment is to be the first to see the dawn. Is this the dawn of dawn? Chapter 459. If peace is only a dispensable expectation for the 4 great ninja villages, then for other small ninja villages, it is a fantasy that they really want but can't touch. Therefore, the leader of Takajin asked nervously, Garashi-sama, can the formation of the Ninja Alliance really bring peace? It must be. Garashi looked around at the crowd. Our world is sick. For a long time there have been constant wars and ceasefires. It's like a vicious circle, and history is repeating itself in this vicious circle. The birth of the Akatsuki is the revenge of this world. If we don't make changes and defeat the Akatsuki, maybe there will be other organizations like Amatsukami and Demon. A's eyebrows twitched. He remembered Shushi once told him about the Hollow. He thought to himself, is the purpose of forming the alliance to guard against that organization? At the meeting, Garashi also said, no one has ever stipulated that there must be enemies to progress, and it's these battles that consume resources and hinder the development of the world. If the ninja world becomes a whole, the world will usher in a real leap, and it's not impossible to fly into the stars. Compared to the boundless universe, the territories and resources we are fighting for now are as insignificant and laughable as ants on the ground fighting for a few grains of rice. So, I hope that everyone can believe me this time, and use this war as an opportunity to officially form the Ninja Alliance. After a moment of silence, Kusanagi, Hokujin, and Takajin took the lead in shouting, we agree to join. The other small ninja villages were excited by the scene described by Garashi, but when they suddenly heard their voices, they quickly woke up. We also agree. We will follow Garashi-sama forever. Not only them but even Raza and Empress Shomiai were shocked. When they were still focused on the interests of the village and the country, Garashi had already looked at the whole world and looked at the stars. Compared to him, their breadth of mind and tolerance was not just one level lower. Taking a deep breath, the two of them came to a decision. Kirin of Sand Crypsis agrees to join. Seeing that everyone was excited, A had no choice but to dispel the discordant thoughts in his heart. Or rather, he had greater ambitions. There's no need to snatch people from the same world. If you want to snatch, go snatch aliens. Well, then I hereby solemnly announce the official establishment of the Ninja Alliance. Garashi said excitedly, when the war is over, we will hold a formal ceremony. Everyone cheered, and the way they looked at each other became much more pleasing to the eye. In the future, everyone will be companions who support each other. At this moment, someone suddenly said, since it's an alliance, there has to be a leader, right? Everyone was stunned for a moment before they spoke one after another. Do you even need to think about it? It's Lord Garashi, of course. No matter what you think, I only acknowledge Lord Garashi as my leader. Not to mention the leaders of the small villages, even the guards and advisors of the other 4 Kages were not surprised by this result. Because even they themselves didn't think that their boss could convince others. And Garashi, in terms of strength, is the strongest in the ninja world. In terms of character, he is flawless. In terms of interpersonal relationships, he has friends all over the world, and people who have received his favor are all over the world. Such a person as the leader is naturally popular. Under everyone's expectant eyes, Garashi said without hesitation. Well, let me be the leader. Although they were surprised by Garashi's decisiveness, no one doubted that he was greedy for power. How could a person who could give up the position of Naruto for 7 years care about power? Then there is only one reason why he agreed so decisively, that is, he knows that the current situation is difficult. In today's world, who else can rule the world but him? Looking at Garashi's figure being looked up by everyone, Mizuki and others who came in as Woodleaf's guards were all excited. Kurenai and Shizen proudly raised their heads. This is their man. Asuma rubbed his chin. Woodleaf, Naruto, the leader of the ninja world, this is a bit too big. Can I still catch up with Garashi? Why don't I lie flat and let Garashi take me flying? Kakashi and Guy's eyes lit up. As expected of Senpai, he is so powerful. Mizuki was thinking silently, should my position be promoted from the shadow under the wood to the darkness of the ninja world? Calming down, Empress Shomiai said, there is a difficulty in forming an alliance, that is, the journey. Anoki nodded, the migration of the whole village is very time-consuming. The villages that are a little closer to Woodleaf are okay, but the villages that are the furthest away from Woodleaf may take a month to get there, and the Akatsuki will not give us so much time. Everyone subconsciously looked at Garashi. Since he has become the leader of the alliance, he naturally has to bear the corresponding responsibility. And Garashi didn't let them down. He said with confidence, this is not difficult. The space of the bordered soil can transport almost 10,000 people at a time, and with the cooperation of my flying thunder god, the entire ninja world can be transferred to Woodleaf in half a day at most. Everyone nodded again and again as expected of the leader. He came up with a solution so quickly. However, there were still discordant voices in the crowd. No, I can't believe this kind of trash who betrayed the village. There is no way to feel at ease putting our fate in the hands of such a despicable traitor. Some people even shouted angrily, this bastard controlled the 4th Mizukage and committed an unforgivable crime in Kirin. He should be executed. Yes, he said before that the demonic wave was caused by him and the guy named Black Zetsu. Since Black Zetsu is dead, the crime should be borne by him alone. Does he not have to bear the previous sins after waking up? Kill him, kill him. Bordered soil was silent, he didn't refute and there was no way to refute. People like him, no matter how many times he died, he couldn't atone for his sins. His only hope is to capture the Sanbai and save Rin before dying. Seeing this, Kakashi wanted to stand up and speak, but Mizuki held him down and warned him, Garashi will take care of it. Garashi was silent for a moment. Bordered soil's crimes are indeed unforgivable. I won't stop you from taking revenge on him, but I hope you can restrain yourself until the end of the war. Now the situation is difficult. No power can be easily given up. Hearing Garashi's reply, the voices stopped, but they still looked at bordered soil with distrust. Garashi, Sama, can such a person really be trusted? Knowing that he will die, will he stand on our side sincerely? Garashi's voice was sincere. I believe that I didn't misjudge him, I guarantee it in my name. Rather than believing in bordered soil, it was better to believe in Simba's persistence. As long as Rin was still in his hands, bordered soil's position would never be a problem. Bordered soil didn't know how Garashi saw him in his heart. Hearing his senior's words, his heart was filled with gratitude and guilt, and he secretly said in his heart, Senior, I won't let you down a second time. Hearing Garashi's guarantee in his name, everyone sighed, and the voices of the crusade against bordered soil also subsided. Since Garashi-sama said so, let's let him go first. As expected of Garashi-sama, his charisma can even tame such a ferocious villain. Chapter 460. After temporarily solving the problem of bordered soil, Garashi said, Next, I'll have to trouble you to go back and explain to the people in your village that the migration will start tonight. Tonight? The leader hesitated. Isn't it too rushed? I'm not sure if I can convince them in such a short time. It's a bit rushed, but the enemy won't slow down just because we don't have enough time. Tonight is the deadline. Garashi pondered. However, I can give you the authority to broadcast the prophecy of Miko-sama. With these pictures, they should be easier to accept. You can let them see those pictures? The leader said with joy. Great, those stupid, people will be scared. As long as they feel afraid, they won't jump out to make trouble. AI waved his hand. You can also tell them that this is a joint decision of all the villages in the world. The leader suddenly realized, yes, I'm now representing the Ninja Alliance. Let's see who dares to make trouble. Don't worry about the housing. I will use Mokutan to build enough wooden houses for everyone to live in temporarily. Garashi said in a deep voice. In short, please speed up. The meeting ended and they exited the dream world. Rock Crypsis. Anoki was in a trance. The Ninja Alliance? The future is getting more and more unpredictable. Kitsuchi nodded and said with emotion, the Warring States era, the Ninja Village era, the Alliance era, we are all adapting to this era. Only he is creating an era. AI pondered and asked, do you think it's possible for me to run for the second leader? Dotai was a little surprised. The war is not over yet and you're already thinking about the future. It seems that Reikage-sama is very confident in Chin, leader. AI waved his hand confidently. The first Naruto and Uchiha Madara are very powerful, but this is not their era. Woodleaf. Sarutobi clan. Asuma opened his eyes and whispered, should I be an advisor or an assistant of the alliance in the future? It's so complicated. Sandame came in from outside. Do you know where Garashi is? Asuma looked up and asked, what's wrong? Sandame shook his head slightly. The situation is tense now. We need to elect a new Naruto as soon as possible. We have to discuss this with Garashi. Asuma said with a strange look in his eyes, I think it would be better to postpone the matter of succeeding Naruto for a few days. Maybe we can announce it together with Garashi as the leader of the shinobi world. Hearing this, Sandame-sama was dumbfounded. Leader of the shinobi world? What is this? Asuma raised his chin proudly. Just now, the leaders of all the villages in the shinobi world passed the proposal to establish the Shinobi World Alliance, with Garashi as the leader. The third generation was flabbergasted. This world was changing too quickly. Late at night. In an abandoned building in the Rain Country, the Edo Tensei resurrected by Nagato during the day were divided into two groups. One group was led by Uchiha Madara, and the other group only had Hashirama and Tobirama. At this moment, Madara asked with a gloomy face, why did that bastard Hashirama only bring one person, and I have to bring so many people? Are you looking down on me? Everyone in the Akatsuki was speechless. What's there to argue about? After all, they are excellent resources who are willing to fight without erasing their consciousness. Nagato patiently explained, we want to capture the Gobi's Jinchuriki and the Hachibi's Jinchuriki, and the Rain Country is adjacent to the Earth Country. With your strength, it won't take long for you to arrive. Therefore, the Lightning Country, which is more than 10 times farther away, can only be handed over to Tobirama with the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. But what does this have to do with only 2 people? Aha, 2 people consume less chakra. Madara gritted his teeth. The more people the Flying Thunder God Jutsu transfers, the more chakra it consumes, but he is now an Edo Tensei. If chakra isn't enough, who would deceive? Do you want others to say it so clearly? Tobirama sneered. In their view, you and Big Brother are only a dozen kages apart. What did you say? Madara looked at him fiercely. Tobirama shrugged calmly. Put away your tricks, we are all dead now, who are you scaring? I even hope you can beat me so that I won't be used by these bastards. You, Hashirama hurriedly stood up to be a peacemaker. Don't say 2 words, we are all dead, there is no need to quarrel again. Madara snorted. Hashirama, do you think so too? Hashirama scratched his head. What do you mean? Madara snorted. It's him who said that there are more than a dozen kages between you and me. No. Hashirama waved his hand again and again. At most, there are 4 or 5 differences. Madara's eyes widened. Hashirama, well, don't quarrel anymore. Nagato said coldly, if you quarrel again, I will erase your consciousness. If I take over, I won't hold back. Tobirama frowned slightly and said nothing. These bastards allowed them to retain their consciousness on the grounds of less killing. Therefore he couldn't resist. Seeing that they finally stopped quarreling, Nagato said, let's go and end it all before dawn. Tobirama disappeared with Hashirama, and Madara led the others to attack with all his strength. When they left, Konan said in a strange tone, I didn't expect the legendary Hashirama and Madara to be like a fool and a child. They are all legends of the ninja world, but Garashi is much more reliable than them. If there is a choice, I would rather exchange the two of them for Garashi as a teammate. Yahiko sighed. Everyone nodded deeply. After seeing the real person today, there was always a feeling of disillusionment. The distance between the Hidden Rain village and the Rock Crypsis village was not far. An hour later, Madara and the others were close to the Rock Crypsis. In the crowd, Genjutsu couldn't help but mock his old opponent. "Mummy, are you touched to see so many of us go to the Rock Crypsis?" Wu, who was bandaged, looked at him coldly. "Are you so happy to see Rock Crypsis have bad luck? Who can guarantee that this is not the end of Kirin tomorrow?" "Haha, I'm too lazy to worry about them." Genjutsu smiled freely. "I've been worried about Kirin all my life. I should be more relaxed when I die. If they can't protect Kirin, it's their own fault. What does it have to do with me? Is it my illusion? Why do I feel that this guy is comforting the second Tsuchikage?" The Raikage muttered in his heart, then shook his head and looked ahead fiercely. "Inoki, that bastard, ambushed me. Today I will settle it with him." "Rock Crypsis, you want me to bring so many people?" Madara secretly thought. "I will throw a meteorite and solve it as quickly as possible." Wait, this is? Chapter 461. Madara was thinking about how to beat Hashirama in the race, when he suddenly looked up at Rock Crypsis. In his perception, the huge village of Rock Crypsis seems to have only 20 or 30,000 people. This scale is completely different from the status of Rock Crypsis as one of the 5 major villages. Is it possible that the people of Rock Crypsis died in the war? Madara thought maliciously, and then his face changed. In his perception, the 20 or 30,000 people were decreasing at a rate of a few hundred. There seems to be a change in the rock village. Madara whispered and turned into a streamer of light and rushed up. Chains? Everyone was surprised, but except for a few people who had a deep hatred for Rock Crypsis, the others were still running at a normal speed. At this moment in the Rock Crypsis village. "I won't go, I want to live and die with Rock Crypsis. I've been in Rock Village all my life, why should I leave with just a few words?" For these stubborn people, Bordered Soil did not say a word and directly sucked them into the Kamui dimension. Seeing this, the people who had gathered to protest scattered and fled. "Run. This wood-leaf bastard wants to kill us. Stop him. Where are the ninjas of Rock Crypsis?" "A bunch of idiots." Bordered Soil cursed in his heart. Suddenly, he felt a familiar gaze and subconsciously looked up into the distance. In the night sky, Madara, dressed in armor, was looking at him with a surprised and uncertain look. Uchiha Bordered Soil. Madara's pupils suddenly shrank, and he almost called out the name of Bordered Soil. How can he be here? Did he betray me? Madara calmly analyzed. No, his feelings for the little girl named Rin are not fake. There is no reason for him to betray me. Is he undercover now? Well, maybe I should pretend not to know him, Madara? Bordered Soil whispered, then looked at the third Raikage and shouted, "Please tell Yahiko that Nagato's eyes were transplanted by Madara. He asked me to join the Akatsuki in order to control Nagato at the critical moment and use the Rinnegan to resurrect him perfectly." The Raikage and others heard such a big news as soon as they came, and they couldn't help but stare at Madara. This guy had even planned for his own resurrection after death. That was too sinister. Madara almost spurted out blood. When he was resurrected, he hid his Rinnegan and appeared in the form of Sharingan for himself to complete the follow-up mission. However, he did not expect that the Bordered Soil bastard would betray him so decisively and directly reveal his secret. "How dare you betray me? Bordered Soil, you know the price of betraying me?" Madara said angrily, and the red Sharingan in his eyes turned into the form of Ripple Rinnegan. Then he summoned the double-faced Susanoo, and his main body and Susanoo formed hand seals at the same time. Tengai Earthquake Star. The villagers of Rock Crypsis, who were fleeing to avoid the Bordered Soil, couldn't help but stop and look at Madara standing on the mountainside in the distance. He is Uchiha Madara? That kind of materialized chakra is so powerful that it makes my heart palpitate. Wait, isn't the person beside him the Raikage? There are many people following behind, are you kidding me? It turned out to be Wudame and the Mizukage and other Kages from other villages. Woodleaf didn't lie to us, the enemy is really coming. Regret and fear gnawed their hearts like a viper. If they knew this would happen, they would have moved. The last straw that crushed this fear was a cry of despair. What is that in the sky? Hearing this voice, everyone looked up subconsciously. Then they saw a huge meteorite breaking through the clouds and pressing down on rock crypsis. Are you kidding? Meteorite. He's summoning a meteorite. Oh, it's a dream, it must be a dream, you can't fool me. Not to mention them, even the Raikage and the Mizukage who came later, couldn't help but open their mouths. Can a ninja really do this kind of thing? Impossible, this must be the power of God. Madara looked down at the panicked villagers below. A bunch of waste. However, to his surprise, Bordered Soil looked calm and didn't seem to feel afraid. Did he grow so much? Bordered Soil didn't panic and he shouted. Senpai, save me. Madara was stunned. Is this your confidence? Before Madara could laugh, the sharp-eyed people found a small figure next to the meteorite. Under the moonlight, the figure rushed toward the meteorite, raised his right foot and kicked violently. Then, in everyone's incredible eyes, the meteorite moved and accelerated toward the position where Madara and the others were. The meteorite was kicked away? Everyone felt that it was ridiculous. It's like an ant kicking over a mountain. The meteorite is so huge that it's impossible to escape from its falling range in a short time. The Mizukage and others didn't intend to escape. Anyway, they are Edo Tensei. However, when the meteorite hit their faces, they were shocked. This kind of meteorite, even if they try their best, they may not be able to stop the meteorite, but the other party kicked the meteorite away with one foot. In this shocking thought, the meteorite finally fell on the ground. Boom. As if thunder exploded in their ears, everyone was deaf for a while, and then there was a terrible vibration and a noisy wave. The convex mountain range directly turned into a concave basin. The canyon on the ground continued to crack, spreading like a spider web, and the people in the center of the village were blown hundreds of meters away. The vibration lasted for a few minutes before it gradually subsided. The Mizukage and others, who were crushed into pieces of paper, squeezed out from the gap under the meteorite and looked at the mountain under their feet. Whether it's Madara or the ninja who kicked the meteorite, their strength level is far from what they can compare. It's like the gap between a man and a god. Even Madara's eyebrows jumped wildly. Is this a ninja? Which ninja kicks the meteorite with his feet? At this time, the rock crypsis people who survived the disaster were shouting wildly. Garashi-sama. Garashi-sama. They shouted as if it was a matter of course, without the slightest hesitation. After all, it's not the first time they were saved and they are used to it. He's the Shimizu Garashi that Nagato said? The Shimizu Garashi who is stronger than Hashirama? Madara said coldly. Not bad, I recognize you. However, Garashi didn't pay attention to him at all. He turned to Bordered Soil and said, Don't divide them, let them squeeze together, this time we will take all the rest of them away. Bordered Soil hesitated. It will take at least a minute and a half to take them all away, and that's without other people's interference. Garashi looked back at the enemies and said calmly, Don't worry, I won't let anyone disturb you. Chapter 462. Seeing that the other side ignored him, Madara snorted. If you want to protect those people, let's see if you have the strength. Madara symbolically made a hand seal. Great Fire Annihilation. In his mind, the other side is a taijutsu-type ninja. It's not easy to block such a large-scale ninjutsu. Garashi clapped his hands. Water release, water wall. Madara's mouth twitched. Why is the other side's action familiar? It's like fighting against Hashirama. The flames surged like a tidal wave and dyed the entire night sky red. In the frightened eyes of the villagers, the waterfall across thousands of meters fell down and stopped the sea of fire. Looking at this shocking scene, the ninjas on both sides took a deep breath. Are these two guys human? A B-class ninjutsu made them look like an S-class ninjutsu. This kind of super large-scale ninjutsu can drain my chakra, but that junior is not tired at all. How much chakra does he have? Isn't the point? To mobilize this kind of chakra doesn't need any hand seals? Everyone was shocked and a thought came to their mind. Wait, isn't he a taijutsu ninja? Yes, why does a taijutsu ninja have such a strong ninjutsu? Who told you that he's a taijutsu ninja? The Raikage said. This guy is a real genius and he has a talent beyond human beings. Not only his taijutsu but his medical ninjutsu, genjutsu, seal, and senjutsu are almost the top level in the ninja world. Even in terms of ninjutsu, he developed his own ice release that can freeze the sea. As for the wood release that the little devil who controlled us said, I didn't see it before I died. Everyone was shocked and couldn't help but shout, how can he be proficient in all aspects of ninjutsu? And when you died he was only 13 or 14 years old, right? The Raikage sighed. That's why I said that he's a genius beyond the limits of human beings. As if to confirm his words, behind the water curtain, the overwhelming vines and branches wrapped around them. Although the momentum was great, they were not ordinary people. They either used ninjutsu to block or ran around to escape. All kinds of dazzling ninjutsu bloomed in the night sky. Among them, the most eye-catching was naturally the laser-like dust escape. In one direction, Wuyu opened his arms and pushed forward stiffly. "Be careful, I'm going to use dust escape again." Naturally, he could tell that the other party was helping rock Crypsis, but his hands were no longer listening to him. Dust escape, primordial stripping technique. Another pillar of light bloomed from his hand, directly destroying the tree world in front of him with an unstoppable force. Furthermore, the beam of light continued to shoot backward, plowing a long and narrow trench in the ground. Seeing this, everyone sighed with emotion. As expected of the blood geniuses, they destroyed the wood so easily. Although I don't want to be used by those rats, I don't want to lose to that bastard Wu. Since I can't change anything, I might as well fight on my own. Don't let us old fellows be underestimated. They are all strong people of various eras. Although they think that they are not as good as Madara and the other party, they also have their own pride in their hearts. Naturally, they are not willing to let all the limelight be taken away by them. In short, these people were inexplicably ignited. Look at my steam explosion, bang. Hell stabbed for books. Susanoo, Yasaka no Magatama. Under their joint attack, the tree world that covered half of rock Crypsis was destroyed. However, before they could be proud, those vines and branches came back again. Even with a more ferocious posture than before, they rushed toward the crowd. They had to meet them again. Attack, destroy, and rebirth, almost 2 or 3 seconds a cycle. After repeating 3 times, everyone's eyes twitched wildly. How much chakra does that guy named Shimizu Garashi have? Why is it endless? Wood release can absorb chakra. As long as he can support himself, he can use it as many times as he wants. What a monster. Fortunately, we are all Edo Tensei now, so we don't have to worry about chakra. At this time, Nagato said, "Don't worry about him, go and catch the Gobi's Jinchuriki. If you can't catch them, use those ordinary people to threaten them to hand over their Jinchuriki." The crowd shrugged and jumped toward the edge of the tree world. However, as soon as they rushed to the edge, they felt a chill. This chill was restrained and could only be felt when they were close. It turned out that they didn't know when a transparent and extremely thick hemispherical ice layer covered this place. It's too cold. If we are still alive, if we accidentally touch this ice layer, our bodies will be necrotic, right? This guy's ice release and Kirin's ice release are 2 completely different concepts. However, that kid is really arrogant. Fighting with us, he still has the strength to lay out such a large ice shield. With that, a group of people began to try to destroy the ice shield under the attack of wood release. However, this ice shield is like 1,000-years-old ice, and its hardness is amazing. Normal attacks are unable to break the ice shield. It is because Nagato was unable to control it for a few seconds and used the upgraded version of dust release, boundary stripping technique. Under the attack of the upgraded dust release, the ice shield instantly shatters and the scattered ice crystals scatter in the night sky, looking mysterious and beautiful. Would release ice release, what a troublesome fellow. If not for Wu's dust release, we might really need to spend some time to break the ice shield. There are also quite a number of people who are puzzled. Where is that kid called Shimizu Garashi hiding? Although his attacks are unceasing, but after he uses the water formation wall, his body seems to have disappeared. The moment the ice shield shatters, a voice from the outside world comes in. Immortal technique, ice release, celestial phenomenon. The night sky, which had been filled with stars, had been replaced by a cold winter with howling northern winds. After everyone breaks the ice shield, what they see is the scene of the cold wind blowing and the blizzard wreaking havoc. Looking at the power of controlling the celestial phenomenon, everyone feels their throat dry up. Are you joking? That fellow can even do this kind of thing. Controlling the celestial phenomenon, changing the heaven and earth, this is already the power of God. Just when everyone is shocked by the scene in front of them, Third Raikage warns loudly, "Be careful, this is the ultimate sealing technique using ice release as the carrier." He had once used this technique to instantly seal the Yanbi. Everyone's eyes tremble. In terms of strength, none of them here are afraid of the Yanbi. But in terms of body size and resistance, they are only ordinary humans and they are not comparable to a tailed beast. Even the Yanbi was instantly sealed, there is no need to talk about them. The most crucial point is that the essence of this Dao technique is the Edo Tensei's nemesis sealing technique. Chapter 463. Thinking of this, everyone hurriedly used ninjutsu to resist. However, such a large-scale sealing technique was naturally not something that could be easily blocked. The blizzard seemed to have sped up by 100 times. The snow particles turned into hailstones, and under the wind they were like cannonballs. The earth walls and water walls they hurriedly built were instantly penetrated, and then the blizzard accelerated 100 times, quickly covered them and froze them. Not only their bodies, but everyone felt that their souls were frozen, their thinking became sluggish, and their eyelids gradually closed. At this last moment, because he didn't find the enemy's body, Madara, who had been restraining himself, finally broke out. Shinra Tensei. Although he didn't charge and he couldn't fully exert the strength of the Rinnegan in the state of Edo Tensei, Shinra Tensei still destroyed most of the rock crypsis in an instant. However, destroying the rock crypsis was just a side effect. The real meaning of this Shinra Tensei was to kill all his teammates. The people of the Edo Tensei finally woke up from the state of frozen thinking through the refreshed state of death. Thinking back, they felt a lingering fear. Even for dead people like them, the experience of having their minds frozen is definitely not good. We finally escaped. What a terrible monster. Wait, aren't we here to catch people? Shouldn't we be the ones taking the initiative? Thinking back to what they heard before, a group of Edo Tensei was a little skeptical. Before, they heard that Madara was going to buy a minute and a half for the Uchiha kid, and they were still thinking about how to do it. How could the other party hold on for a minute and a half under the joint attack of so many strong people? And the result? The other party took the initiative to attack, suppressing them so that they couldn't fight back in this minute and a half. This was 2F** King ridiculous. Who fights for time like this? For a while, they all felt a little distressed for the younger generation of this era. It's really hard to be in the same era as this monster. The people of Rock Crypsis were also scared, whether they were ninjas or ordinary people. Seeing that more than half of the village was destroyed by Madara's attack, their hearts were full of fear. Too strong. That Uchiha Madara is worthy of being a legendary ninja. If it weren't for Garashi, he could have destroyed Rock Crypsis with just one technique. It's a pity that a strong man like you can't fight in your best state. Madara raised 2 fingers and the skeleton giant was quickly filled with flesh and blood. The next moment, a warrior giant with wings on his back and a body larger than a mountain appeared in front of everyone. Look, this is the complete form of Susanoo. Seeing this, the experts who had experienced the Warring States period all had solemn expressions. Madara's complete form appeared. This is something that only appears in the battle against Senju Hashirama. But just as they were explaining the power of Susanoo's complete form to the others, the voice of Rock Crypsis also came. It's actually a warrior giant form. 4 years ago, the person who also used this form lasted more than a minute against Lord Garashi. This time it was their turn to be dumbfounded. In this era, there was a strong man who developed Susanoo to the complete form. And listening to their tone, that man seemed to have been beaten by Shimizu Garashi. Just as they were shocked, opposite them, a huge Buddha statue with a height of hundreds of feet rose from the ground. Looking at this familiar scene, Madara's mouth twitched wildly. Did this guy completely copy Hashirama's ability? He had even learned the 1,000 true hands. However, this kind of battle can save me the process of familiarization, Madara thought. Although the complete form of Susanoo is huge, it's not at the same level as the wooden Buddha statue. Moreover, his Susanoo can't collide with Hashirama. Now that there is no Kyuubi, of course he won't fight with him. Therefore, Madara directly vibrated his wings and flew into the air, surrounding the Buddha statue with Yasaka's Magatama. Chakra's Magatama shot toward the Buddha statue like a storm, and in an instant, a terrible storm of energy bloomed on the surface of the Buddha statue. Shushi, on the other hand, did not care. He controlled the Buddha statue's 1,000 arms to attack indiscriminately in all directions. Each of his punches caused a sonic boom in the air and ripples in space. When these ripples overlapped, even space became unstable. A terrifying energy storm wreaked havoc around the two of them. The aftermath of the battle between the two spread out a little, and the distant mountains were instantly annihilated, and the ground was a huge meteorite crater. In just a few seconds, the entire Rock Crypsis village, which had been in ruins, collapsed more than 10 meters, and even many places were pierced through the ground, and the flowing magma gushed out from it. Seeing this terrible scene, the shock in everyone's heart has reached the point of no return. 2 monsters. These 2 guys are definitely not human. After the shock, the people who gradually recovered began to chase the ordinary people who were hiding in the distance. After noticing their movements, Garashi's offensive stagnated, and dozens of wooden clone jutsu went to stop them. Seeing this, Madara's face sank. Fighting with me, you dare to be distracted to protect others? In anger, Madara also divided into dozens of clones, and the clones were wrapped in Susanoo, surrounding the Buddha statue and attacking. However, Garashi completely ignored the existence of Madara. His Mokutan can absorb chakra. As long as it is not completely destroyed, it can be recovered in a short time. On the other hand, as long as the opponent is hit by him once, he will be destroyed. Madara naturally understood this truth and he was depressed. Damn, this guy is really as difficult to deal with as that bastard Hashirama. Although he has Rinnegan is not very useful for this kind of battle. With the size of the Buddha statue, ordinary gravity and repulsion will not play much role. As for absorbing ninjutsu, the opponent's Mokutan is a physical attack, and it is not very useful. What is really useful is his Rinnegan's exclusive dojutsu, Tomb of Reincarnation, Border Prison. But it can't be used in the state of Edo Tensei. Damn it, I'm not his opponent in this state. Madara recognized this reality. It seems that I can only entangle him first. What? At this moment, Garashi's figure suddenly appeared in front of him, and before he could react, Garashi's hard fists fell like raindrops. The absolute defense of Susanoo, which Madara was proud of, was no different from paper under the heavy punch of the opponent, layer by layer. Then the fist fell directly on his body. With just one punch, he was beaten into a state of resurrection, and he was held in the hand of the opponent. Chapter 464. Seeing Madara being caught like a dead dog, the battlefield suddenly became quiet. That's Uchiha Madara, the legendary ninja. His name and Senju Hashirama shown in two different eras. Moreover, Madara just destroyed most of the rock crypsis with one blow, which also proved his strength. But such a powerful ninja was easily defeated by Shimizu Garashi. Even if it's just the body of the Edo Tensei, it's shocking enough. Genjutsu shook his head with emotion. It's terrible, even a monster like Uchiha Madara failed. Inoki was shocked and then he was happy. He used to be annoyed that he lost to Shimizu Garashi, but now he saw that Madara, who humiliated him and Wusama, was also caught by Garashi and he was very happy. Madara's face was gloomy. He could accept being defeated, but it was the first time for him to be held in such a humiliating position. At least Hashirama will not humiliate him. Bastard, let me go. Suddenly Madara's familiar voice came. Madara, what's wrong with you? Madara was struck by lightning and his eyes were gloomy. Such a shameful picture was seen by Hashirama. It's not over yet, someone's annoying voice came. Oh, big brother, don't you think he's like a puppy pinched by the back of the neck? Because he was dead, Hashirama was not worried about Madara. Hearing Tobarama's description, he burst into laughter. Ah, you're really? Looking at Madara's murderous eyes, Hashirama closed his mouth, and then looked at Garashi and said, Haha, you're Kazuna's disciple? You're really good. Tobarama said. Big brother, you just met for the first time. How can you be sure that Garashi is good? Do you think he did what you always wanted to do? Seeing Tobarama's gesture, Madara went crazy. Bastard, I'm going to kill you. Seeing that Madara was about to get angry, Hashirama hurried to smooth things over. No, I just think. By the way, he's as handsome as I am, he must be very good. This time, Tobarama and Madara were silent. Although Hashirama's appearance is not bad, Tobarama and Madara's eyes are too heavy. Negative temperament. Hashirama, have some shame. Why did I? Garashi interrupted their flirting, and asked, Lord Naruto, did you go to Yunin before? But there shouldn't be anyone over there. Hashirama laughed heartily. Aha, we thought Yunin was haunted. I spent some time there. Tobarama looked around and sneered, the person who controls us should be worried that you will seal them all, so he hurriedly called us over to put out the fire. Or, he wants me to be prepared to escape with the flying thunder god. Madara calmed down a little, but suddenly he realized that his eyes were high, and he had a bad feeling in his heart. What do you want to do? Garashi completely ignored Madara's roar and even lifted him high. Nagato, I know you can hear me. Let them and the two Naruto stop. Let's fight fair and square. Don't involve those ordinary people in this dispute. As a response, I can put Madara back. Inoki's heart tightened and he was about to speak, but he was silent again. Cloud Village and Rock Village were the first to move. If the Akatsuki were willing to put down their pride, they could definitely start a kill to save race with Shushi. As a person who was saved by Garashi, he couldn't say that Garashi shouldn't let Uchiha Madara go. Perhaps, The only thing I can do is to believe in him and believe that he can defeat the two legends together. At this moment, Nagato, who was still in the country of rain, was silent. In fact, he already knew what bordered soil told him through other people's ears. At first, he felt fear and had a feeling that his life was being manipulated. In his mind, there was never any memory of Uchiha Madara and the transplanted eyes. But now, seeing the picture of Madara being lifted high, Nagato's fear gradually dissipated. He even thought that Uchiha Madara was just like this? No matter how much he calculated, he has failed now. This era belongs to us. Nagato's mood calmed down and he controlled his body and said, "Well, I promise you that's it for today." After all, he was not the kind of person who was evil. He only attacked ordinary people in exchange for Jinchuriki, and he didn't want to kill them. Since Garashi proposed not to seal Uchiha Madara, he took advantage of the situation. Hearing the answer, the Rock Crypsis villagers who hadn't had time to move into the space were relieved and then cheered loudly. Garashi-sama. Garashi-sama. Seeing so many Rock Crypsis villagers cheering for Garashi, Hashirama's eyes widened. Amazing. Wood Leaf's people can get so many cheers in Rock Crypsis. Tobirama was also shocked. The villagers of the enemy village worshipped him from the heart. This was something that even his elder brother couldn't do. After getting a positive answer, Garashi didn't hesitate and directly threw Uchiha Madara out. Madara adjusted his body in midair and landed steadily, and he was about to explode. "Bastard, I'm going to kill." However, he just raised his hand and his body froze. Nagato's indifferent voice came from Madara's mouth. "I said that's it for today." Madara was even more annoyed. Madara was just a pawn he picked and he dared to talk to him like this. And bordered soil, that traitor, dared to betray him. "I must get my revenge." Madara continued to blacken. Nagato didn't care about him but looked at Garashi. "I lost to you again, worthy of being my enemy and friend." Both sides were surprised. "Friend?" Garashi sighed. "If it weren't for bordered soil telling me, I wouldn't have thought that you who looked forward to peace in the Third Ninja World War, would become war criminals who provoked war." "War criminals?" Nagato shook his head slightly and didn't intend to explain. "It doesn't make sense to say this now. Let victory decide who is right and who is wrong." After that, he let Tobirama take them away with Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Seeing the enemy leave, the villagers who hadn't had time to transfer were relieved. Then, looking at the tragedy after Rock Crypsis, they felt sad. "My home is gone. Rock Crypsis is destroyed and nothing is left." Anoki was also very sad, but thinking of the discussion during the day, he was relieved. It's just enough to completely cut off the past and start again. But before he spoke, Garashi stood up and said, "There's no time to be sad. War doesn't wait for people. If you don't want sadness to become regret, cheer up and take revenge on Akatsuki." The crowd clenched their fists and shouted, "Garashi-sama is right, we have to cheer up. Let Akatsuki witness our anger." Seeing everyone cheering up again, Anoki was relieved at first, but then he was at a loss. "Wait, am I completely ignored as a Tsuchikage?" Chapter 465. The next day early morning. Many villagers of Woodleaf woke up from their sleep and were stunned by a series of news. What? Dozens of ninja villages appeared outside the village? What? The entire ninja world formed the Shinobi World Alliance? What? Garashi-sama became the leader of the alliance? Oh, I must be still asleep, I'll go back and sleep for a while. This news was too shocking, not to mention ordinary ninjas, even the big clans were stunned. In the Hyuga clan's land. As expected of Garashi-sama. Hisashi said excitedly, in just one night he turned the world upside down. Hayashi nodded with a shocked expression. The leader of the shinobi world, this is a great change that has never happened in thousands of years. In the Uchiha clan's wooden house. Fugaku said with emotion, I heard that Garashi-sama easily defeated Uchiha Madara last night. Now, those idiots who clung to the pride of the Uchiha should be able to recognize the reality. Itachi said with admiration, with Garashi-sama, peace is finally no longer an illusion. Sasuke listened and remembered the scene he saw a few days ago, and he couldn't help but feel excited. I will also become a strong person like Garashi-sama in the future. Compared to the shock and joy of Konoha's people, the villagers of the other 4 great ninja villages and those small ninja villages were inevitably some of the loss of being uprooted and the resistance of living under someone else's roof. However, after listening to some villagers of Rock Crypsis, their resistance and loss turned into joy and fear. Such a powerful rock crypsis was beaten into ruins, and it was under the protection of Garashi-sama. If they didn't migrate, they might have been dead by now. In a large conference room, the people of the various villages took their seats one after another, and they looked at each other awkwardly. In the end, A couldn't help but ask, "Tsuchikage, I heard that you had a big battle with the Akatsuki last night?" Inoki only felt that this was a bit harsh. Was that a big battle? It was clearly waiting for Garashi to save them. However, he also knew the importance and urgency of the matter. It was necessary to explain the strength of Akatsuki. In addition to the kages of the various villages, many famous strong people have also been resurrected. For example, Yunin's former Hachibi Jinchuriki, San Crypsis's puppet ancestor, Sakumo, Woodleaf's White Fang, and Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. What? Ai's eyes widened. It's not enough for those bastards to resurrect my dad. They even resurrected my cousin? Chio frowned. Puppet ancestor? Empress Shomiai asked. Uchiha Madara, is he really that powerful? Inoki nodded slowly. Even if it's just the Edo Tensei, he can still destroy the rock crypsis in one blow and even pull down meteorites from the sky. His strength is not in the same dimension as ours. Of course, no matter how powerful he is, he's still no match for Garashi. In the other direction, Mitokado Hamura and Udatane Koharu had complicated expressions on their faces. Although they said that they were going to resign from their positions, they couldn't help but participate in such a rare event where the major villages formed an alliance, and it was a major event led by Konoha. Hamura sighed. I didn't expect that Uchiha Madara, who was so strong, would lose. Sandaime laughed. He lost to Shodaime-sama. Garashi's strength now is not weaker than Shodaime-sama, and he may even be stronger. It's natural for him to defeat him. Koharu also sighed. The leader of the shinobi world. Maybe we really did something wrong. If we supported him back then, Danzo wouldn't have been wrong, and Woodleaf would have a new appearance. In fact, this is also good. Sandaime comforted. Hand over the power and hand over the world to the young. In the midst of these discussions, Garashi walked in. I'm sorry for calling everyone here at such a busy time. As soon as his voice fell, many people were eager to flatter him. It's Rai-sama who worked hard last night, and you didn't forget to call us here. Rai-sama, you must take care of your body. You still have to lead us to victory against the Akatsuki. Raza and the others froze. They really couldn't say such words. These leaders of small villages simply refreshed their understanding of moral integrity. Garashi smiled reservedly. Then let's get straight to the point. Today I called everyone here mainly for 3 things. First, please do your best to appease the villagers. Coming to a completely unfamiliar place, it's inevitable that they will feel uneasy and afraid. I didn't ask. Just as AI opened his mouth, the people of small villages interrupted him. Garashi-sama, rest assured no one will make trouble. Our people will know their place. AI couldn't help but stare at them angrily. Can these bastards not interrupt? The person who spoke felt a little guilty after being stared at, but he quickly returned the stare. Everyone is a member of the alliance. Who is afraid of who? Shushi continued. Then we need to organize all the shinobi from the major shinobi villages and arrange a super large barrier that covers all the shinobi villages. The enemy has the ability to destroy a city in one blow, so we must determine the battlefield outside the barrier. Everyone nodded in agreement. They didn't want to follow in the footsteps of Rock Crypsis. That's what we should do, but... Inoki hesitated. Even if we gather all the shinobi from the major shinobi villages, it may still not be enough to cover all the shinobi villages and have a strong defensive ability. Garashi pondered for a moment. Then use a combination barrier, let the chunins and genins of each village act as the nodes of the barrier. With the power of 70 to 80,000 people, it's enough to block the enemy outside the barrier. That's true, but... AI said in a deep voice. Even the chunins are transferred. What about the war? This is the last thing I want to say. Garashi said, the White Zetsu army is out of control. What we actually have to deal with is the members of the Akatsuki and their resurrected Edo Tensei. In the face of this level of power, ordinary chunins don't even have the qualification to intervene. Instead of forcing them to participate in the war, it's better to let their power play in a more meaningful place. Raza couldn't help but sigh. In the past wars, jonins appeared as captains, but in this war, jonins are just small soldiers. Jonins are just small soldiers, Kage and the village leaders are captains, and the leader is the commander of the alliance. Empress Shomiai also sighed. The standard of this war is really high. After they finished sighing, Garashi added, "In this war I will stop Uchiha Madara and Hashirama, and Nagato with the Rinnegan. As for the others, I will trouble you to stop them." Hearing Garashi's arrangement, Sandaime couldn't help but ask, "Garashi, aren't you going too far?" Empress Shomiya was worried. "Two legends, one myth, this is too much for you." AI nodded. "We, 4 Kages should be able to deal with one." Anoki frowned. "Although you are stronger than Uchiha Madara, you also fought for some time last night. Taking advantage of his distraction, you succeeded in sneak attacking him. This time with the other two it's really too much." Garashi laughed. "When did you have the illusion that I used all my strength last night? If it weren't for the fact that I was worried about the first and second Hokage-sama's ambush, I would have defeated him long ago." Anoki's eyes widened. "Isn't that your limit?" Garashi sighed. "I haven't used all my strength for many years. Even I don't know how strong I am now." Chapter 466. In addition to the major ninja villages, the Akatsuki was also shocked by the news of the formation of the Ninja Alliance. In the base of the Rain Village. Hearing Yahiko's words, Raiga was surprised. No wonder they transferred everyone overnight. It turns out that they had formed an alliance in secret. Sasori said in a deep voice, "It took less than a day from the bordered soil to the formation of the alliance. This kind of action is really terrifying." Kisame said in amazement, "Only Shimizu Garashi can have this kind of appeal to mobilize the entire ninja world." "I'm not saying this for you to be amazed," Yahiko said helplessly. "The final battle is coming, at least show me a little bit of nervousness." "Haha, isn't it the same with or without me?" Raiga's laughter was a little sad. He still has a clear understanding of his position. He was at the bottom before, but now with so many strong Edo Tensei, his position has plummeted again. The reason why he can still stay in the core is mostly because of his identity as an elder of the organization. Kisame shrugged. "In the next war, the role we can play is indeed minimal, so I can only say that I will do my best to fight." Yahiko scratched his head. "No, everyone is still very important." At this time Nagato said, "In this war, let me take the Edo Tensei army to participate in the war. It's good if we can win, but if we lose, you all have to escape." "Nagato, how can you say such discouraging words?" Konan was surprised and said anxiously, "We haven't lost yet. Hashirama and Uchiha Madara can defeat them." Yahiko was dissatisfied. "I am the leader of the Akatsuki, it's not your turn to show off." Nagato shook his head slightly. "The Edo Tensei form can't exert their full strength, not to mention that I have to suppress Hashirama's consciousness. It's good enough if they can exert 70% of their strength in the end. Although 70% of their combined strength is already very terrifying, I still don't have much confidence in stopping Shimizu Garashi, because I suspect that he didn't even use his full strength last night." Everyone asked in disbelief, "Isn't that his full strength?" Nagato's expression was heavy. "Although it's just a guess, it's not impossible. After all, he's someone who can create miracles. Because of this, you need our help even more." Yahiko said solemnly, "Moreover, we don't have to defeat Garashi. As long as we catch the Jinchuriki, we will win." Konan nodded again and again. "As long as you can stop him for a while, we can catch the Jinchuriki." Raiga rubbed his hands and smiled. "If you're really worried, you can leave the animal path in the base. If it really comes to a point of no return, you can summon us back with your psychic abilities." Nagato frowned. "I have to control the Edo Tensei army and suppress Hashirama's consciousness. In this case, it's difficult for me to react quickly, and a delay of a few seconds in the war is likely to lead to a different scene. Since it's a war, we can't not take any risks. That's it, when the time comes, you can pull people according to the situation." Raiga waved his hand with a heroic aura. "It's not that he doesn't want to escape, but the problem is, where can he escape to? If the Akatsuki loses, the ninja world will become a hole, and if he wants to escape, he can only hide in the mountains and forests forever. He doesn't want to do that, so he intends to fight seriously." Seeing that the others didn't refute, Nagato took a deep breath and said, "Okay, we'll do as you say." Back to the topic, Yahiko asked, "The Alliance seems to be mobilizing 70,000 to 80,000 people to set up a barrier. Nagato, is it possible to use Naidame Naruto's Flying Thunder God Jutsu to cross the barrier and directly teleport in?" Nagato shook his head. "I've already experimented with Tobarama's body before, and the Flying Thunder God Jutsu he left behind before his death all disappeared. It should have been erased by Minato and Shimizu Garashi. They're really cautious, not leaving any flaws for us." Yahiko sighed. Then we can only attack from the front. Suddenly Yahiko's spirit rose. He looked at Aizen and asked, Uncle, can the spy you developed break through the barrier from the inside? Aizen also shook his head. Although his position in Woodleaf is high, a barrier of 70,000 to 80,000 people can't be broken by one person. Well, I'm thinking too much. Although he can't do it, maybe I can try. Yahiko suddenly looked up. Uncle, what do you mean? Aizen chuckled softly. I can try to sneak into the barrier with genjutsu, and then at the critical moment, use a large-scale genjutsu to control the surrounding people and temporarily disable the barrier. Hearing Aizen's words, Yahiko quickly remembered the genjutsu he used to control hundreds of people in an instant, and couldn't help but be overjoyed. Great, the key to capturing Jinchuriki depends on you. Aizen nodded slightly. Leave it to me. Outside the building. Form the Ninja Alliance. Hashirama exclaimed. Kazuna's disciple is really powerful. He easily did what we couldn't do. Brother, you don't have to be modest. Tobirama comforted him. If you didn't create the era of the ninja village, ending the hatred between clans and improving the structure from a clan to a village, he wouldn't have succeeded so easily. It can be said that this is the result of 2 generations of hard work. Hashirama shook his head and said, It's far more difficult to make everyone a family than to let them sit at the table. On the side, Madara listened to their conversation. His eyes were calm, and there was no sign of shame and anger last night. The Ninja Alliance interesting. However, to think that a mere Edo Tensei can trap me, how laughable. He was indeed very unhappy last night, but to say that he was blinded by anger was underestimating him too much. After Hashirama's death, he was willing to be silent for decades, and even directly bet on the future. His patience has long been tempered to be as firm as a rock. You kept the black stick I gave you. Should I say that you are greedy or stupid? Recalling the power he felt from bordered soil last night, Madara chuckled. That black stick is the consciousness I left in my heyday. As long as I get it back, I can use the 6 paths technique to forcibly break the Edo Tensei. Instead of using bordered soil to break the Edo Tensei, it's better to control bordered soil at the last moment to seize the Jinchuriki. It's just that it's a bit troublesome to control him. Although the black stick can interfere with the flow of chakra in bordered soil's body, and even control bordered soil's body, but that's under the condition that bordered soil's resistance is not strong. Maybe I can find an opportunity to seriously injure him. Well, it's a revenge. P.S. Tomorrow night at 3 p.m. Chapter 467. With Garashi's order, the entire Woodleaf and even the Alliance began to operate like the most sophisticated war machine. Everyone in the Alliance was very enthusiastic about this. The threat of the demonic disaster, the encounter of the rock crypsis, reminded them all the time what would happen if they lost the war. Therefore, under the external threat of the Akatsuki, everyone grew rapidly. Ordinary people encouraged each other and helped to build defensive facilities. Genin and Chunin worked hard to learn the hand seals. Jonin formed teams to familiarize themselves with each other. The Kage and leaders shared the abilities of the resurrected powerhouses in their villages and then made battle plans. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. However, everyone knew that this calm on the surface wouldn't last long. The Akatsuki couldn't just watch them develop. The war could break out completely at any time. 2 days later in Minato's house. Shina Kushina waved her fist angrily. Garashi, why don't you let me participate in the war? Garashi explained, Jinchuriki is the main target of the Akatsuki. Appearing on the battlefield will give the enemy a chance. Shina Kushina refused. Didn't you say that the Akatsuki has long been prepared to replace me with the Ginkaku and Ginkaku brothers? That's just a backup plan. Garashi shook his head slightly. There's a better choice, why would they give it up? I'm the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. How can I be caught so easily? Maybe I can even scatter their forces on the battlefield. Shina Kushina waved her hand indifferently. Besides, Kurama has been waiting for the day to beat up Uchiha Madara and Naruto for a long time. As soon as her voice fell, a little orange fox jumped out of Shina Kushina's head and asked impatiently, Garashi, I heard from Shina Kushina that you beat up that bastard Madara? It's not a beating, I just bullied his Edo Tensei. Garashi said modestly. That's enough. The little fox waved his paw like an old man. Uchiha Madara, that bastard, has always been arrogant. He's definitely not happy to be bullied by you. By the way, that bastard Hashirama beat him up for me. Garashi sighed. You know my situation, Madara's situation can't be applied to the first Hokage. Then I won't beat him up. Kurama shook his head and pondered for a moment. Then he waved his claws and said, "But I have to be the one to seal him." Garashi had a strange expression. "You also know sealing techniques?" "That guy Shikaku knows sealing technique, so of course I can also learn it." Kurama rolled up his sleeves and roared fiercely, "In order to say that sentence in front of Hashirama, I worked very hard." Shina Kushina raised her hand. "I can testify that Kurama has been working very hard. After knowing that the first Naruto has been resurrected, he hasn't played cards for 2 whole days." Garashi was shocked. "That's really a strong determination." Shina Kushina nodded and said, "So, even if it's for Kurama's determination, you have to let me go to the battlefield." Naruto was eager to try. "Kurama too also applies to fight." "Naruto, you can't go." Shina Kushina directly denied. "Why can you but not me?" Naruto shouted. "I'm also Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. I don't want you to go because you'll be injured that day," Shina Kushina said gently. Naruto tilted his head and looked confused. "No, I'm in good health," and, boom! A slender and powerful arm directly smashed through the floor in front of Naruto, and even the house shook a few times. Then Shina Kushina's faint voice came from the side. "You'll get hurt because I'll spank your ass." Naruto shivered and wailed in his heart. "Dad, come back and take care of your wife." It seemed that God heard his prayer, and 2 figures appeared at the door. However, their bodies were a little stiff. Jiraiya swallowed and whispered, "Minato, it's time for you to show your majesty as the head of the family." Minato naturally wouldn't be fooled. Although Shina Kushina would definitely give him face in front of outsiders, it's hard to say what would happen after they leave. So Minato said righteously, "Jiraiya, sensei, you're wrong. There's no such thing as the head of the family here. Everyone is their own master." Jiraiya curled his lips. "Say that to Naruto and see if he believes it or not." At this time, Naruto also noticed the arrival of the 2. At first he was happy, but soon his small face fell. "Why do I feel that the 2 of them are not as good as me?" Shina Kushina pulled out her arm as if nothing happened and smiled. "Jiraiya-sama is here. Minato, how can you let sensei stand at the door? Come in quickly." The 2 followed her advice and quickly walked in. Feeling a little awkward, Jiraiya touched Naruto's head and smiled. "Little Naruto, do you know who I am?" Naruto nodded. "Yes, I know. You're the legendary Sanhai." "Ah yes, I'm the daimyo." Jiraiya was stunned and corrected him with a smile. "Naruto, you're wrong. It's Sannin. Right?" Naruto didn't hide the contempt in his eyes. "I heard from my classmates that you're a perverted pornographic novelist." Jiraiya coughed wildly and waved his hand again and again. "That was when I was young. I've already turned over a new leaf." Naruto tilted his head. "Didn't you change your pen name and continue to write?" Jiraiya's eyes widened. "You know this too." Know who spread this rumor?" Naruto decisively betrayed someone. "I heard it from Kakashi-san. He said that your style of writing can be recognized at a glance." "Haha, so my style of writing is so recognizable?" Jiraiya shouted complacently, and then found himself surrounded by contemptuous eyes. "Wait, someone deliberately imitated my style of writing. That's too much." However, Shina Kushina just patted Naruto's head and said earnestly, "Naruto, you have to thank Jiraiya-sensei for setting an example for you." Jiraiya couldn't help but burst into tears. Shina Kushina was still a loyal person. She still believed in him. Naruto asked, puzzled. "Example?" "Yes." Shina Kushina sighed. "No girl like such a wretched person." Naruto suddenly realized. No wonder Kakashi-san is said to be a genius and very handsome, but he hasn't had a girlfriend. Is it because of his wretched temperament? Jiraiya froze and cried silently. Was he a bad example? Minato couldn't stand it anymore and took the initiative to change the topic. "Garashi, in fact, Jiraiya-sensei came to see you today." "See me?" Garashi asked. Jiraiya calmed down and asked, "I heard that the leader of Akatsuki is a person named Yahiko." Chapter 468. Yahiko. Garashi pretended to be surprised and asked, Jiraiya, Sama also knows them? Jiraiya nodded with a complicated look. They are my disciples. In fact, I was suspicious when those people with Rinnegan suddenly appeared, but they called themselves Pain, so I thought it was a fluke. Minato on the side was surprised. They are also Jiraiya, sensei's disciples? Naruto also widened his eyes. He couldn't believe that this pornographic novelist could teach such powerful disciples. He established the Akatsuki organization and even forced the entire shinobi world to unite. Jiraiya recalled and said, they are orphans left behind by the Second Shinobi World War. I met them in the Rain Country and accidentally found Nagato's Rinnegan. I thought he might be the child of prophecy who could bring change to the shinobi world, so I stayed and taught them for 3 years, hoping to lead them to the right path. Naruto couldn't help but ask, then why did they become like this? They're all very good children. Of course it's because I didn't guide them well as their teacher. Jiraiya said with a self-deprecating smile, after all, I'm just a good-for-nothing ninja. Of course I can't lead them to the right path. I think I should still have the right to speak as sensei's disciple. Minato looked serious. In my opinion, sensei, although you are a little good, well, you have some true temperament, but under the frivolous surface, you have a kind and sincere heart, and you have perseverance that will never give up. These are the shining points that guided my growth. Listening to Minato's words, Jiraiya felt gratified, but he still sighed. Anyway, it's my fault that I didn't go on the right path. Jiraiya, Sama, you are indeed wrong, but it's not what you did, it's what you saw. Garashi said in a deep voice, I have seen them during the Chunin exam and the Third Shinobi World War. At that time they were very naive, thinking that they could bring peace to the world by understanding each other. Even now they are working hard for the changes you mentioned. Shinobi World Revolution. Jiraiya's eyes widened. You mean Yahiko and the others are still fighting for the ideals I guided? Although their methods have changed, I can see that their hearts are still as sincere as ever, and they hope to bring change to the shinobi world. Garashi pursed his lips. It's just that their behavior is too radical and incompatible with this world. That's why they seem to have gone astray. Jiraiya was silent. After a long time he sighed and said, I didn't expect that as their teacher. I didn't know them as well as you did, understood them and trusted them. I'm indeed a terrible teacher. Is that really the case? Garashi shook his head slightly. Nagato and the others didn't want to reveal their names before, and it could be explained by self-preservation, but 4 years ago, they were strong enough to participate in the 5 Kages tournament, but they still used fake names, which means that they simply didn't want to reveal their names. They were worried that the people they valued would be sad and disappointed after knowing what they did. Jiraiya suddenly looked up. Are you talking about me? Garashi said, I don't know, but it's very likely. Jiraiya fell into silence again. After leaving Nagato and the others, he received the news of their death not long after. He blamed himself, thinking that it was because he taught them ninjutsu and led them into the circle of ninjas that they died. But the result? They lived well, and they never even recognized him, which made him feel that he was abandoned by his disciples. It's because of this that he lost his composure today. But Garashi said that they loved him and didn't want to disappoint him, so they deliberately didn't reveal their identities. Taking advantage of Jiraiya's silence, Shina Kushina grabbed Naruto, blinked and asked, Garashi, what do you think of Naruto? Garashi's heart moved and he had some guesses, but he still said, Naruto is very cute. Shina Kushina pressed Naruto's head and tried to promote him, not only cute but also smart. Moreover, his performance in school is also very good. Minato and I didn't teach him before, but he can compete with the children of the Mikoto family for the first or second place in the class. Even the teacher said that he's a genius. Naruto was stunned. Didn't his mother always say how powerful his father was when she was a child, and how he was a piece of trash? Why is she so different today? Moreover, he used to think that his mother was bragging, but he didn't expose her because he wanted to save her face. These days he realized that his parents were really powerful, and he was the only piece of trash. Shina Kushina was also a little embarrassed. Although Naruto's performance was not bad, it depended on who he was compared to. She and Minato were already geniuses, and Garashi was beyond the definition of a genius. At Naruto's age he could even develop A-class ninjutsu. Calling him a genius in front of Garashi was like playing with a seal in front of a whirlpool. But for Naruto she had to go all out. So, Garashi, do you want to accept Naruto as your disciple? When Naruto heard this, his heart pounded nervously. Garashi, Sama was a man who calmed the war by himself. regarded as the god of ninja, and even became the leader of the ninja world. In the eyes of these children, he was madly worshipped as a god. If they could be accepted as a disciple by Garashi-sama, Sasuke and Neji would be crazy with envy. Under Naruto's nervous and expectant gaze, Garashi smiled. Of course, but let's wait until Naruto graduates according to the process. Now is the stage of laying the foundation, and the teachers in the school are better than me. Graduate? Naruto clenched his fists and immediately had the urge to graduate early, but Garashi-sama also said that now is the stage of laying the foundation, he should practice more in school. Moreover, he had some small ideas in his heart. He wanted Sasuke to perform more and strive to become Garashi-sama's disciple. Kushina also knew that with Garashi's identity, it was impossible for him to have time to teach from the beginning. So, she just touched Naruto's head and said in a cold tone, "You have to work hard in the future and don't let Garashi down." Naruto shrunk his neck subconsciously. Why does it feel a little cold? Also, what does Mom mean by this? What will happen if he disappoints Garashi-sama? What will happen to his butt? Jiraiya didn't know that his original disciple was gone, and he was still there. I didn't expect that my position as a teacher is so important in their hearts. Thinking of this, Jiraiya's spirit was refreshed and he slammed the table and shouted, "I didn't fulfill my obligation as a teacher before. This time I must pull them back from the wrong path. P.S. Sorry, the third update is estimated to be 2 or 3 in the morning." Chapter 469. Just when Jiraiya was feeling smug, there was a sudden noise outside. Oh my god, what's that? Meteorites and 3 meteorites. Can the barrier stop them? Dig a hole with earth release and hide underground, dig at least 20 meters deep. In the midst of the noise, Garashi and the others quickly rushed out of the room. Looking up at the sky, 3 huge meteorites fell in the shape of a triangle. Although they heard Rock Crypsis describe the scene of a meteorite falling a few days ago, seeing it with their own eyes, they couldn't help but be shocked. Is this Uchiha Madara's power? It's terrible. Shocked, Jiraiya glanced to the side. Uchiha Madara, who can pull down a meteorite, is a monster. Then Shushi, who defeated Madara, is a monster among monsters. I heard there was only 1 meteorite at that time. I didn't expect it to be Madara's limit. Kushina asked with a dignified face. Garashi, can you stop it? Garashi smiled. This is a challenge they sent me, I'll be back soon. Do you want me to use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu? Minato asked. It's not easy to jump in the air. Garashi shook his head slightly. That Tsuchikage shared the light and heavy rock jutsu in the dream world, I already know it. Minato was a little surprised. That Tsuchikage even used this jutsu. Jiraiya smiled. That old guy looks stubborn, but he knows it better than anyone. Kushina frowned and said, the light and heavy rock jutsu is only floating, but it's far less flexible than the super light and heavy rock jutsu. Although it's not the super light and heavy rock jutsu, I developed the wind jutsu with this jutsu. Its flexibility in the air shouldn't be worse than the Tsuchikage. Garashi directly rose into the air and flew to the sky. Naruto's eyes lit up. This is good, I want to learn this. In the Alliance, people who were worried about the meteorite falling through the barrier looked up at the sky, and then they saw a person entering their sight. Who is that, Tsuchikage-sama? Impossible, he's taller than the Tsuchikage. Hey, you're too dark. I know, it must be the leader. Garashi flew in the air and looked at the meteorite in front of him. Although he has many ways to deal with these meteorites in general, it's more shocking. So, Shushi kicked the meteorite with all his might. In the next moment, the meteorite suddenly accelerated more than 10 times and flew into the distance. Repeated, the other 2 meteorites. And the other 2 meteorites. Seeing this, the Alliance's people was a little dumbfounded. The crisis is the Alliance? Because it's 2, it's not real? When the rock while this it is then under the lead of some people, everyone began to cheer. Great, we're saved. The leader is the guardian of the Alliance. As long as the leader is here, we don't have to be afraid of anything. Everyone cheered loudly to vent the fear in their hearts. Even the clouds brought by the war seemed to be kicked away by these kicks. At this moment, on a mountain far away from Woodleaf. From afar, the cheers from Woodleaf and the surrounding villages could be heard. Yahiko and others twitched their mouths and couldn't help but look at the initiator. You don't want to give them confidence, do you? Madara's eyes twitched. How do I know he can fly? Although he knows that these meteorites can't do anything to him, flying and not flying are 2 different concepts. If he can solve the crisis by jumping up and down like a monkey, he can use this to attack the enemy's morale. Of course, the most important thing is that he can get revenge for the anger he suffered a few days ago. I said that these little tricks won't work, let's fight. Nagato sighed. All right. Madara nodded and then said, Nagato, you control Hashirama to merge with me. As soon as his voice fell, several people around him jumped out a few meters in an instant, and then looked at him with frightened eyes. Madara has never married in his life. Is this the reason? Also, Madara sincerely cooperated with the Akatsuki organization. Is it because he covets Hashirama's body? Tobirama stood cautiously in front of his big brother. Madara has been wrong for a long time. It's not surprising that he said something. Only Hashirama looked inexplicable. He was the one who really understood what Madara meant. What's so strange about merging? Madara used to merge with the Kyuubi. This time, everyone's eyes were even more frightened. They didn't expect that he would not even let go of the fox. Madara's mouth twitched and he was too lazy to explain to them. Nagato, control him with thousands of hands. Nagato nodded and forced Hashirama's consciousness. The next moment, a huge Buddha statue rose from the ground under the mountain peak. Madara jumped to the top of the Buddha statue and stood side by side with Hashirama. The chakra of Susanoo wrapped the Buddha statue, and the Buddha statue was covered with a layer of purple armor. Might suit, thousands of hands, Susanoo. When the power of Susanoo merged with thousands of hands, Madara, who controlled this power, found that his and Hashirama's power had undergone some kind of qualitative change. The two forces repel each other and combine into one, giving birth to everything in the world. Sure enough, the combination of the power of Senju and Uchiha is the correct answer. Even in the state of Edo Tensei, our strength will increase exponentially. Madara's mouth rose slightly and he looked at Woodleaf. Giving up the opportunity to seal me is your biggest mistake, Shimizu Garashi. After solving the meteorite, Garashi returned to the village. As soon as he landed, Naruto rushed over excitedly, dancing with joy. Sushi-sama, you're amazing. You kicked away such a big meteorite with just one kick. I'm just a little stronger. Garashi smiled and then looked at Minato and the other two. Let's go, the war has begun. When Garashi and the other three arrived at Woodleaf Square, the army was almost assembled. If it was a general war, of course, it would be impossible to assemble so quickly. But this war started with Jonin, and their discipline is naturally not comparable to Genin and Chunin. Moreover, the Jonin village only gathered more than 2,000 people. With such a small number of people, it was easy to gather. When everyone arrived, Garashi stood in front of the square and said loudly, "Everyone, I won't say anything unnecessary, but please remember that the future of the alliance depends on us. In this war, our only outcome is victory. Victory, victory." As if to dispel the nervousness and fear in their hearts, everyone shouted loudly. At this moment, in addition to the people who were going to participate in the war, the villagers of various villages also gathered here and heard these cries and joined them. Victory, victory. Garashi nodded and waved his hand. Chapter 470. Outside the barrier, Nagato led the Edo Tensei army to attack the barrier. From time to time, there were small forces attacking the barrier, but Nagato ignored them completely and kept throwing ninjutsu. He was very clear about the current situation. The key to the decisive battle was the barrier. If he could break through the barrier and catch the Jinchuriki, it would be worth it even if the entire Edo Tensei army was sealed. After all, the Edo Tensei had a time limit. Even if it wasn't sealed, it wouldn't last for more than a few days. Under their fierce offensive, the barrier that gathered the power of 70,000 to 80,000 people felt like it was about to collapse. Close to their attack area was the Takajin village. At this moment, a group of Takajin villagers were looking at the mountain like giants and trembling. Among all the attackers, the most shocking one was undoubtedly the combination of Hashirama and Madara, a 1,000-armed samurai with a long sword in each arm. The combination of the two accounted for at least 95% of the total damage. A casual aftershock escaped, leaving a bottomless canyon on the ground. It's terrible, how can there be such a monster? Why did they choose our Takajin village? Don't worry about the newly built village, run to the central area. Takajin leader Shigaya's eyes widened, and he wanted to ask Kakuzu-senpai, how did he escape from such a monster in the past? Under his despairing gaze, another round of slashes came down, and it was as if something had split open. The barrier that enveloped Takajin flickered and was torn apart, turning into countless light fragments. This result was so smooth that Nagato and others couldn't believe it. But thinking about it carefully, they understood. The combination of Hashirama and Madara is far stronger than a simple combination. Wood Leaf's people also miscalculated. Seeing that the barrier began to heal, Nagato didn't have time to think and quickly ordered them to rush to the gap in the barrier. However, after a few people rushed in, the speed of the barrier's recovery increased dozens of times, and in the blink of an eye, most of the gap was healed. Not good, it's a trap. Nagato's face changed and he ordered Hashirama to control the Buddha statue to slash at the gap. His reaction was quick, but someone else was quicker. Almost at the same moment the Buddha statue moved, a figure teleported out. When he landed, he changed his direction and jumped toward the Buddha statue. Then he threw a heavy right punch at the Buddha statue's chest. Boom. It was clearly a scene of an ant trying to shake a big tree, but in the end the big tree was beaten back several steps. What a heavy fist, it's the kid named Shimizu Garashi. Madara's eyes were cold and he didn't think of anyone else with this kind of physique. Garashi is amazing. Nagato took a deep breath, and he finally understood what kind of pressure Madara was under last time. Garashi stood in the air with his arms crossed. It seems that the power of fusing with the first die has given you the courage to challenge me once more. Madara's eyes twitched. Challenge? In the past, it was always him who said such words to others. Now that he heard similar words from the mouth of his enemy, it really made him unhappy. Without communication, Madara directly manipulated the Buddha warriors to chop down, and the slashes of 1,000 swords converged into a sword storm that tore everything. 1,000 swords, God-slaying. At this moment even the line of sight was blurred and distorted, and the sound was isolated. It was as if the swords cut a vacuum and cut off the light. Even across the enchantment, everyone could feel the sharpness of the swords, like a knife scratching their faces. This is called power. Madara stood calmly on the top of the Buddha statue with his arms crossed. The attack frequency of thousands of swords, the hardness of Susanoo, plus the qualitative change of chakra after the fusion of the two, and even the acceleration of Rinnegan's repulsion. Such an attack is definitely not something that human beings can block, even if he is in his heyday. As for whether Shimizu Garashi will use the Flying Thunder God to avoid it, he doesn't care. Anyway, behind him is the enchantment. Moreover, those who came out with him can't use the Flying Thunder God. Thinking of this, Madara's eyes were playful. Dodge or resist, what will you choose? Looking at the overwhelming swords, Garashi said a few words in his heart. Sage mode, Hashimantanku open. The next moment, a steady stream of power emerged from every corner of his body. The speed of the storm was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Garashi was swallowed up, but he didn't care at all. He just calmly clenched his fist. It's a feeling I haven't felt for a long time. With his current strength he can easily suppress anyone. Except for the sneak attack 4 years ago, he hasn't used these two modes for many years. However, not using them for so many years doesn't mean that he is unfamiliar with them. He exercises his body day after day, and even uses the demon's method to destroy his body. He has already tempered his control of his body to the peak. He can quickly adapt to any surge of power. Even the Hashimantanku and Sage mode, which have reached the peak of power, is incomparably tame in his body. I've been invincible for so many years, but I've never slacked off for even a single day. Although it's my own choice, it's always a little lonely without an audience. Today I'll have to trouble you to help me experience the fruits of my cultivation over the years. Outside, Madara's playful eyes became dull and disappointed. He felt that the other party's chakra didn't disappear, that is to say, the other party chose the second way. It's stupid. In order to protect the people behind you, you don't hesitate to take risks. When a person carries all hope, any risk is stupid. It seems that I still think highly of you, but at this moment, a powerful chakra rose from the storm and then the sword storm was torn apart by a blue airflow. The sword storm, which was sharp to the extreme, seemed to be able to cut the space, but it was torn apart. This scene made Madara's eyes widen, and there was a faint ominous premonition in his heart. Sure enough, a light rushed out of the center of the storm and rushed straight to the Buddha statue. There was no movement of punching or kicking, just a simple collision, like a sharp arrow piercing the outer layer of defense of the Buddha statue. So fast. Madara's pupils suddenly shrank. Although his Rinnegan could capture the other party's movements, his body's reaction couldn't keep up at all. Just as he was about to retreat, he was sent flying by Shushi's punch. Before he could stabilize himself, he was kicked back by Shushi, who chased after him. Like a ball he was kicked back and forth. Bastard, stop it. Madara was furious, but his struggle was of no use. Even his main body was much slower than Shushi in terms of speed and reaction time, let alone the Edo Tensei. In just a second, Madara was kicked hundreds of times by Garashi, and finally he was caught in his hand. You want to dance with this level? Chapter 471. It's reasonable to say that such a big decisive battle should be on the verge of breaking out, with fighting and death everywhere. But in fact it's completely different. As soon as they were ready to fight, they were attracted by the battle above. It's impossible not to be attracted. The aftermath of the battle can kill them. If they're not careful, they might die. The same is true for the Edo Tensei. When they resurrect, it's the easiest time to seal them. At this moment they were staring at the sky, their eyes full of disbelief. Madara is gone? Are you kidding? That guy named Shimizu Garashi was not so fierce a few days ago. Susanoo with thousands of hands, such a defense is as fragile as paper in front of him. I don't know how such a monster was born in this era. Compared to their shock, the members of the alliance were overwhelmed with excitement, especially after Shushi said, "Dance." Many of them were extremely excited. The leader is so domineering. I didn't expect that the gentle Garashi-sama has such a domineering side. Are you kidding? Garashi-sama has always been very strong to the enemy. In the past he rushed into Kirin's camp to kill Sandaime. Ahem, harmony. Uchiha Madara's face was gloomy. He was defeated in the case of combining with Hashirama. Moreover, this bastard's arrogant look is somewhat like his style. Garashi waved in the direction of the battlefield. Kurama, he will be sealed by you. Kurama's ears stood up, and his claws popped out of the meat pad. Hey, I will take good care of him. Madara's face was black. Let my summoned beast seal me. Is this how you humiliate me? Garashi shook his head slightly. I have no interest in humiliating you. I'm just helping a friend fulfill a wish. Friend? That beast? Madara sneered, and then the corner of his mouth rose slightly. Also, you don't think you really won, do you? What do you want to say? Garashi said, and suddenly his face changed and he was hit by an invisible force. Although there was a sudden change, he still held Madara in his hand. Madara was not surprised. A top ninja like Shimizu Garashi will not be affected by accidents. However, what happened to him was not just an accident. The invisible force was like a gangrene attached to the bone, especially the arm that was holding Madara, which was the focus of attention. If he hadn't covered his right hand with armament haki, his wrist might have been cut off. Seeing Garashi repeatedly dodging and retreating, but there was no one around him. Even with chakra he could not detect the presence of enemies. Everyone was puzzled. Was Lord Garashi fighting a battle of wits with the air? If they didn't know that Garashi wouldn't betray them, they would have thought that he was acting. After dodging a few times, Garashi seemed to have understood something. He changed direction in midair and charged straight at Nagato. Is this guy's hand made of steel? It's okay. Madara was wondering when he saw Garashi attacking Nagato. He couldn't help but chuckle. You're the god of ninja of this era. You found the secret so quickly. However, it's no use. Lungu, border prison is not something that mortals like you can break. Sure enough, when Garashi's fist fell on Nagato, Nagato's position was replaced by a special existence, and his body appeared in the distance in an instant. Tomb of Samsara, borderland prison? Shushi repeated, pretending not to know. Although he was caught in Garashi's hand, and his posture was somewhat indecent, Madara calmly explained. Oh, you should know now that Nagato's Rinnegan was transplanted by me, so what he used to play was not the real strength of Rinnegan. At least he can't use my exclusive dojutsu. Garashi asked. Exclusive dojutsu? Is this the Wheel Tomb, border prison you were talking about? Madara nodded calmly. Yes, I gave him permission to use it. As for its function, it is to attack with a shadow that you can't see or perceive. Moreover, this shadow can also defend and change position. In addition to the fact that Lungu, border prison is really incomprehensible to people who have not stepped into the realm of the six paths, revealing the information is harmless. Madara also had a small intention to tell others that the person who finally defeated Shimizu Garashi was actually him. After all, he was defeated by Shimizu Garashi twice in a row, and it was a fiasco. He also wanted to save some face for himself. Hearing Madara's explanation, everyone was afraid. How can you fight an enemy that you can't see or perceive? It's difficult to attack the body directly. The shadow can be exchanged with the body in an instant. That's how he escaped. Uchiha Madara deserves to be called. We still underestimated him. Fortunately, it's Nagato who used his eyes. If it's him, the situation may be worse. And Garashi seemed to be attracted by him. He just exchanged positions with Nagato and pretended to be dissipated. Finally, he saved Madara from Garashi's hands. Madara, who was out of control, rubbed his neck and smiled. Oh, it seems that I have to add one more thing to you. Taijutsu is ineffective against the shadow. Hearing this, everyone was shocked again. They have witnessed how strong Garashi's taijutsu is. If taijutsu is ineffective, it will undoubtedly be one less big weapon. Garashi's expression was calm. I'm a medical ninja. It's not a big deal if I can't use taijutsu. Madara jumped back to the top of the Buddha statue and almost fell from the top of the statue when he heard this. Medical ninja? Which medical ninja can kick meteorites and tear Susanoo with his hands? After taking a deep breath and calming down, Madara said, "The second round, start again. But this time we're just an assistant. Your opponent is Nagato." Nagato's mouth twitched slightly. He only asked the assistant to shut up. If it weren't for Madara's authority, he would have shut him up. However, Madara obviously didn't realize this. His outbreak is maintained by Sage Mode and Hashiman Tanku. As long as we survive this outbreak period, we will win. Nagato nodded slightly. This suggestion was quite reliable. Garashi's expression was a bit subtle. Outbreak? Although he is indeed in a state of outbreak, it may be different from Madara's understanding. First of all, his Senjutsu chakra was almost endless. It would be a small problem for him to maintain it for a few days. As for the 8 inner gates, as long as he didn't open all 8 gates, he could still withstand it. Therefore, this explosive period of his might be a little longer than 100 million years. Chapter 472. Compared with the outside world, the inside of the barrier was a whole different world. Since most of Nagato's energy was used to deal with Garashi, the Raikage and the others who were separated by the barrier just sat down and chatted. Good job. The Raikage nodded in appreciation. Separating us from the others will make it much easier to seal them. Haha, Garashi-san never makes mistakes, and those idiots in the Akatsuki think that he miscalculated. If it were me, I wouldn't even need to think about it to know that it was a trap. A said disdainfully. The Raikage's mouth twitched. That's because you fell into his trap too many times during the Third War. A wasn't angry, instead he was a little proud. Being able to let Garashi-san trap me so many times without much loss, doesn't it prove that I'm powerful? Uchiha Madara and the first Hokage didn't even get this treatment. The Raikage didn't know how to evaluate his open-mindedness, but he had to say that this attitude may be more suitable for today's ninja world. On the other side, Tobirama was constantly flashing in the crowd, and no one could stop him. It's troublesome, only space-time ninjutsu can deal with space-time ninjutsu. Muttering like this, Tobirama suddenly found that his bitterness was taken away. A ninja with yellow hair and blue eyes appeared in front of him with a gentle smile. I heard from the Akatsuki that Woodleaf has 2 people who can use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. One is Shimizu Garashi, and the other is Namikaze Minato. You are Namikaze Minato, right? After all, he was the first Kage, and the second Kage who developed the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, so Minato introduced himself very formally. Naidame-sama's eyes are like a torch. I am the 4th Naruto Namikaze Minato. The 4th Naruto Namikaze? Tobirama was a little surprised as the Akatsuki didn't mention this. But he didn't doubt that the other person was lying, as there were other Woodleaf people around. You actually became a Naruto at such a young age. Tobirama nodded in appreciation. Suddenly he realized a problem. Wait, is Shimizu Garashi not Naruto? What he meant was, you can't abdicate at such a young age, can you? Garashi is naturally more suitable than me to become Naruto, but... Minato looked at him cautiously. I stepped down from the position of Naruto because Danzo and the Akatsuki set me up. His purpose was to make himself the next Naruto. Tobirama's eyes widened. Wasn't Danzo his disciple? What's going on with the Akatsuki? Did Monkey and Menya not stop him? Minato said apologetically. Sandaime-sama did stop him, but he didn't succeed. As for Mitokado Hamura and Udatane Koharu, they also supported Danzo to become the next Naruto, but now they have resigned because of suspected collusion. Tobirama's face turned black. He had a total of 6 disciples, 1 was confirmed to be framed, and the other 2 were suspected of collusion. What did he teach them? In the other direction. Looking at Kakashi, who had changed a lot, and even one of his eyes was blind. White Fang wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end he could only sigh. "I'm sorry." Kakashi's eyes were complicated. While dealing with his father's attack he said, "Although I don't agree with your approach, you did it to protect me, right?" White Fang was surprised and somewhat gratified. "You've grown a lot, Kakashi." "This is not what growth taught me." Kakashi shook his head slightly. "After you died, I thought you were a coward, and desperately wanted to prove myself. It wasn't until Senpai came to me and told me the various possibilities behind your suicide that I understood that what I saw was not necessarily the truth." At first, when Kakashi mentioned Senpai, White Fang had some doubts, but he quickly reacted. "The person you are talking about is Garashi, right?" Kakashi nodded and said gratefully, "I have encountered many misfortunes, but the only fortunate thing is that I met Senpai." White Fang was shocked. Kakashi was still young, so it was not surprising that he couldn't understand, but Garashi was only 1 year older than him, and yet he had such insight. Compared to him, his son who was called a genius seemed to be insulting this title. "Indeed, I should thank Garashi." White Fang sighed and said, "Come on, let us father and son have a good fight. Let me see what level your Hataki swordsmanship has reached." "Hataki swordsmanship, I haven't used it for a long time." Kakashi shook his head and pushed up the forehead protector covering his left eye, revealing a scarlet eye with a big windmill pattern. "Sharingan? And it's a Manjikyu Sharingan." White Fang looked confused. "Does his family have the blood of the Uchiha?" Outside the barrier, looking at Garashi, Nagato said with emotion, "Finally, it's come to this point, let's decide the outcome of this war." However, Garashi shook his head slightly. "No, you have lost." Nagato said thoughtfully, "Do you mean that I used the power of Madara?" "I didn't mean that." Garashi sighed. "Although you didn't meet her, Shina Kushina-san has always been concerned about your safety, but you let people catch her. And Jiraiya-san, he taught you carefully, but he didn't want to be the teacher of the great devil. Even those who first joined the Akatsuki, what will they think of you now? Isn't it a failure to let the people who care about and worship you down?" Nagato was stunned and subconsciously looked at his teacher, people, and followers on the battlefield, silent. If Garashi persuaded him with reasons such as hatred and pain, he had a lot of words to refute, but when it came to disappointing these people, he couldn't justify it. Jiraiya stood up and said with self-reproach, "I'm sorry, Nagato, I shouldn't have brought my personal feelings into teaching you, I shouldn't have let you carry my will, I shouldn't have forced your future to be connected with the prophecy of the great Toad Sage. Don't live for my ideals, live for yourself." Nagato's eyes struggled and hesitated. Seeing that Nagato was about to be affected by the mouth, Madara frowned slightly. "This guy's will is too weak. However, it doesn't matter, now I should be able to exert some influence." Madara's eyes were cold, and he didn't release the authority of the Rinnegan out of kindness. The Rinnegan's powerful chakra and eye power will make people lose themselves. When the Rinnegan was transplanted, Nagato was still young. In order to avoid Nagato being affected, Madara sealed part of the Rinnegan's ability. Therefore, Nagato was not overwhelmingly powerful before. Now, while unsealing the Rinnegan's powerful eye power, Nagato will gradually be affected by the Rinnegan's erosion. He can already interfere with Nagato's will a little. Chapter 473. After the darkness in his heart was magnified by the Rinnegan, Nagato stopped struggling and asked calmly, "You said you were wrong?" Jiraiya nodded hard. "Give me a chance and give yourself a chance." "Ridiculous." Nagato laughed. "When we were suffering from the war, no one cared about our life and death. Later, when we worked hard for peace, no one cared about our opinions. Finally, when we were killed by reality, no one cared about our voice. Now you want us to give up, don't you think it's too late?" Jiraiya opened his mouth and couldn't close it. Although he taught them ninjutsu at the beginning, it was because of Nagato's Rinnegan that he made this decision. Therefore his purpose was not simple. Seeing Jiraiya didn't speak, Nagato laughed. "Nothing to say? Then accept the punishment of God." Shinra Tensei. 5 times the repulsive force broke out in an instant, and Jiraiya was bounced out. Seeing this, Garashi frowned. He was not surprised that the shadow of Luanmu could use ninjutsu. Even the shadow clone could use ninjutsu. As a high-level shadow clone, there was no reason why Luanmu couldn't. What he really wondered was, did Nagato have a sudden attack? Why did he call himself a god? Could it be that after Madara released the Rinnegan he was infected by his Chinibu soul? Garashi looked at Madara subconsciously. Noticing Garashi's eyes, Madara was shocked. Did you notice that Nagato's change is related to me? You're a monster who is stronger than me in Hashirama. You're so sensitive. Seeing Nagato raised his right hand again, Garashi's figure flashed, and he took the initiative to meet him. His speed was extremely fast, almost like lightning, but Nagato didn't panic at all, and he easily changed his body with the shadow. It's no use. Can you be faster than the reaction of the mind? As long as the Rinnegan can capture your movements, you can never attack me. How do you know if you don't try? Garashi exhaled a breath of cold air, and fine ice crystals filled every corner of the space. You want to use Ice Escape to sense the existence of the shadow? Nagato sneered. These shadows are not just invisible. They only materialize when I need them. No, these ice crystals are used to lock onto your position. As soon as he finished speaking, Garashi appeared in front of Nagato and threw a punch. How could it be so fast? Nagato's pupils suddenly shrank. He didn't have time to think and quickly switched places with a shadow. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Garashi followed him like a shadow. Nagato kept moving and Garashi kept teleporting. He used the Flying Thunder God technique on me? Alright, it's those ice crystals. Nagato woke up and couldn't help but be surprised. He actually used those ice crystals as the Flying Thunder God's technique. How precise is his control over chakra? However, this trick was not difficult to crack after knowing the principle. Shinra Tensei. After switching places with the shadow again, Nagato quickly used the repulsion to bounce all the ice crystals on his body and around him. Not only that, he also used the repulsion to form a protective shield with a radius of 3 meters around him to prevent those invisible particles from approaching. Garashi, whose teleportation was interrupted, stopped inside. What a pity. If I was faster, I would have caught you. It's really a pity because I won't give you another chance. Nagato clapped his hands. Chibaku Tensei. When the strong gravity came from his side, Garashi quickly understood. Nagato used the shadow around him as the core of gravity. The weakness of Chibaku Tensei was that as long as the core of gravity was broken, the gravity would disappear. But these shadows were in an invincible state, which meant that the process of Chibaku Tensei could not be interrupted. What was even more troublesome was that the shadow even used a strong man lock and grabbed onto his arm. In this way, even if he used the Flying Thunder God technique to teleport, he would still be the target of the seal. Large chunks of rock flew toward Shushi as if they were trying to seal him in a sphere that was gradually taking shape. Playing Chibaku Tensei with the shadow of the Tomb of Luen? Oh, it's quite fun. Madara's mouth was slightly raised and he was very satisfied with Nagato's performance. The people fighting below also saw that Garashi seemed to be at a disadvantage now, and they were nervous one by one. No, the leader is in danger. No, I can't get close. Damn it, as long as I get close I will be sucked. If you can't get close, let me remotely. Bordered Soil looked at Garashi with Sharingan, intending to transfer Garashi with Kamui. He was so absorbed in injecting his power that he didn't even know that Madara was behind him. Bordered Soil, shouldn't you give me back what you owe me? Hearing the voice behind him, Bordered Soil's hair stood on end. Before he could react, Madara pressed the back of his head and slammed him into the ground. Now give me back the life you owe me. In the gradually forming sphere, Garashi sighed. I wanted to leave this ability to a stronger enemy, but now it seems that it won't work. A stronger enemy? Nagato wondered, is there an enemy stronger than him and Madara? Garashi asked, can your gravity capture light? As soon as his voice fell, Garashi turned into a stream of light and flew out, leaving the shadow in a daze, and he didn't know what happened. After escaping from the meteorite, Garashi appeared almost instantly beside Bordered Soil and Madara. Speed is power. Have you ever been kicked by light? Garashi raised his right foot and kicked toward Madara. What? Madara suddenly turned back. Even with the power of Rinnegan, it was too late to react. He saw a light in front of him and then he flew out like a cannonball. It was really like a cannonball, smashing countless trees and mountains all the way, leaving a gully more than 10 kilometers long on the ground, almost flying directly out of the border of the country of fire. This shocking scene made the whole battlefield speechless. What level of power is this? Madara was beaten again. But this is too powerful. I just blinked my eyes and the situation was reversed before I could react. Like Kirin who took the Byakugan, even his body was trembling. I can't even see the Byakugan. Where did Madara go? Even Garashi himself was a little surprised. The Sage Mode plus the Hashiman Tanku pushed his speed to the limit. Coupled with the light release, This speed is beyond human understanding. That is to say, his control of his body has reached the peak. If it were someone else, they might accidentally rush out of the country. Nagato took a deep breath and asked, "What is this?" Garashi raised his right hand, and a light flashed on the tip of his index finger. "This is the Kekkei Genkai I developed. It's called Light Release." Chapter 474. Hearing Garashi's introduction, everyone couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Kekkei Genkai? Light Release? Is it similar to Steel Release, where the whole body turns into light? This is no longer the god of shinobi, but a real god. Everyone sighed from the bottom of their hearts. They were not surprised that Garashi could develop Kekkei Genkai. After all, he had developed 2 Kekkei Genkai 7 years ago, and it was reasonable for him to develop Kekkei Genkai now. What they were really surprised about was that the combination of Light Release and Garashi's own body could exert this kind of power. Like the Tsuchikige's Dust Release, although powerful, but the charging time is too long, the hit rate is low, and the deterrent effect is greater than the actual combat effect. But Garashi's Light Release is not only extremely fast, but also terrible, and a pure physical attack can destroy the world. The third Mizukage couldn't help but joke, "Anoki, why is your Dust Release so weak?" Anoki's tone was calm. "It's not Light Release that's powerful, but Shimizu Garashi himself. The speed of Light Release is too fast, and the charging time of Dust Release is too long. It's a flaw in itself. If it's someone else, they may lose control and kill themselves. By the way, if I can make Dust Release instantaneous, it will definitely be more terrible than Light Release." Hearing Anoki's words, everyone gradually calmed down. Indeed, although Light Release is powerful, the real powerful one is Garashi himself. The third Mizukage said, "Oh, so you're saying that as the user you're too useless and can't exert the strength of Dust Release?" Anoki wasn't angry and said coldly, "Compared with him, who isn't a waste? At least, I wasn't beaten to death by him when he was a teenager." The third Mizukage's mouth twitched. In the sky, Nagato took a deep breath. "It seems that I still underestimated you." Garashi didn't comment and asked with a smile, "You said before that as long as you see me, I will never catch you. So, can you still keep up with my speed now?" As his voice fell, Garashi turned into light and dispersed. Nagato opened his eyes wide and pushed his eye power to the limit. Even so, he still couldn't see Garashi's movements clearly. Without any warning, he felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen, as if his internal organs had been shattered. Then Nagato, who was sent flying, spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. In fact, this was Garashi holding back. With the kind of strength that Madara withstood, a person without the Edo Tensei body can explode with one punch. Everyone could understand. After all, they still had hostages in their hands. Before rescuing the hostages, it was not good to kill them. Although his body was in severe pain and his consciousness was a little blurred, Nagato gritted his teeth and let Hashirama control the Buddha statue to attack him. Although he couldn't see Garashi's movements, he could attack his surroundings indiscriminately. "You're still struggling on your deathbed." Garashi sighed. His body turned into light and then expanded infinitely. In the end, he turned into a giant of light that was several times taller than the Buddha statue. Seeing this scene, everyone was silent. Madara Susanoo was big enough, but compared to the Thousand Hands, it was like a child, and in front of this giant of light, the Thousand Hands Buddha statue also became a child. Has the battle between ninjas become a competition of size? The giant of light raised his right foot and stomped down on the wooden puppet. The giant didn't seem to have a physical body, but it had infinite heat, and the wooden statue was directly annihilated in this blazing heat. Even the wood release that can absorb chakra didn't have time to transform. Nagato was shocked. Hashirama's wood release could absorb Madara's Susanoo, but against this giant of light, it was destroyed after absorbing a small part of it. Without much time to think, Nagato hurriedly summoned the 4 shadows back to his side to protect him. The shadows that can nullify physical attacks were like an absolute defense for him. After dealing with the wooden Buddha statue, Garashi sealed a part of Hashirama and threw it in the direction of the battlefield, while he separated a small light man and flew towards Nagato. Nagato still didn't have time to react, but he didn't move at all. Using shadows to protect yourself? Garashi understood, and directly split the giant into tens of thousands of small light men and surrounded Nagato. After all, his shadows couldn't be tightly stitched, and as long as there was a gap, light would enter. For a while, Nagato was surrounded by tens of thousands of small light men, and the scene was very bloody. "It's over," Seeing Nagato being beaten so miserably, whether it was the Alliance or the Akatsuki, everyone thought so. Conan couldn't help but cry and shouted, "Nagato, admit defeat. It's not over yet." Nagato roared, and in the space where no one could see, the four shadows merged into his body. His originally thin body suddenly swelled up, and his muscles bulged, turning him into a muscular man. Then, under everyone's incredulous eyes, he summoned the Geto Mazo and let the Geto Mazo swallow him. The next moment, except for the eye that absorbed the Sanbai, the other 8 eyes opened at the same time, but what appeared in them was the image of Rinnegan. Using Rinnegan to replace the eyes of the other tailed beasts? Even Garashi was a little surprised by the change in front of him. From the appearance of the Geto Mazo swallowing the tailed beasts, it was the process of opening the eyes, then directly using Rinnegan to replace the eyes of the other tailed beasts? In a sense, Nagato's method was somewhat similar to how he defeated the Jubi in the past. The difference was that he lacked the outer shell, so he used Ryumayaku chakra to replace the outer shell, but Nagato lacked the core, so he used Rinnegan to replace the core. However, his Ryumayaku chakra was almost endless, and it could sustain the consumption of the Jubi, but with Rinnegan as the core, chakra was still lacking. Nagato could successfully summon the Jubi because he forcefully merged with the shadows. Under Garashi's gaze, the Geto Mazo's withered body became a little rounder, and then with a roar, the sky suddenly became gloomy. Dark clouds covered the sky, lightning flashed, and a huge tornado that connected the sky and the earth began to wreak havoc. The ground collapsed and magma surged as if it was the end of the world. Seeing this, everyone in the Alliance panicked. Naturally, they would not forget the scene in Mithraya's prophecy. In that prophecy, the Jubi had the power to destroy the world. It's over, it's completely over this time. Damn it, didn't they say that only by gathering all 9-tailed beasts can the Jubi be summoned? Don't panic, the Jubi in front of us is still very different from the one in the prophecy. I know, he used Rinnegan to forcefully awaken the incomplete Jubi. With Leader Sama here, there will be no problem. Garashi was indeed very calm, although Nagato's move was a bit unexpected, not to mention the incomplete Jubi. Even the complete Jubi was absorbed into a Jinchuriki. In his opinion, it was just SOSO. Chapter 475. Most importantly, the shadow of the tomb of Luan was not permanent. Once the time was up, the ferocious Jubi would turn into a husky. Of course, the others did not know this. Under everyone's fearful gaze, the Jubi roared like a beast and spat out a huge Bijudama. Garashi stood in the path of the Bijudama and opened up a space-time barrier to transfer the Bijudama away. The next moment, a terrifying energy shockwave came from afar. Even though they were more than 10 kilometers away, everyone could feel the ground shaking violently. Seeing this, the Jubi seemed to have been provoked and shot out 3 more Bijudamas. Garashi raised his eyebrows and split into 3 clones. 2 of them opened up a space-time barrier with his main body, while the last clone went to the Jubi and used it as a coordinate to transfer the Bijudama to it. The Jubi's eyes were filled with confusion before it was swallowed by the terrifying energy storm. There was a loud roar as if heaven and earth had exploded. The energy shockwave radiated in all directions and caused the barrier to tremble violently. Seeing this, everyone was overjoyed. Did they kill the Jubi just like that? However, the smiles on their faces soon disappeared. After the shockwave dissipated, although there were a few large holes on the Jubi's body, they were almost healed quickly. Everyone could not help but be shocked. The destructive power had only caused some superficial wounds on the Jubi's body. How were they going to fight it? Just as they were worried, many of them realized that the Jubi that should have gone crazy had calmed down. Its eyes that were filled with destructive intent had also become much calmer. The next moment, Nagato's voice came from the Jubi's mouth. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for helping me regain my consciousness. When Nagato spoke, he still had some lingering fear. He did not expect that the incomplete Jubi's consciousness would make him lose his consciousness. Fortunately, after being blasted a few times, the Jubi's beast consciousness was temporarily suppressed and his consciousness regained the upper hand. Seeing that Nagato had regained his consciousness, everyone could not help but look solemn. Although the Jubi was ridiculously powerful, it was still a beast without intelligence. That was why it could be easily tricked. Now that Nagato's consciousness had gained the upper hand, the situation was completely different. Garashi said calmly, "It's only temporary. In your current state you'll be devoured by the Ten-Tails consciousness sooner or later." Nagato did not deny it. "You're right, so I want to make a deal with you." He knew very well that his Ten-Tails state could not be maintained for long. It was impossible to defeat Garashi in this short period of time. Therefore, he wanted to take advantage of the fact that the others were not aware of the situation to decide the outcome, using his death in exchange for the others' lives. A deal? Garashi asked. I can suppress the Jubi's consciousness and let you seal it. Nagato took a deep breath. As a price, I hope you can let the others go and promise not to hunt them down. Before Garashi could say anything, Konan and Yahiko spoke up fiercely. No, the three of us agreed to be together forever. I am the leader of Akatsuki. If you want to capture someone, it should be me. Do you think this is grocery shopping? Do you think you can bargain? Nagato scolded harshly, then looked at Garashi and said, with my current strength, if I completely go berserk, I can definitely bring huge losses to you. You don't want to see this happen, do you? Moreover, with you in the shinobi world, they can't make any waves at all. Everyone was a little moved. Of course, winning at the lowest cost is the best result. For a ninja, benefits are eternal. Just like Inoki ambushed the third Raikage and Garashi killed the third Mizukage, but aren't the various shinobi villages allied now? However, in the end, they didn't make a sound and just looked at Garashi with expectant eyes. Under everyone's gaze, Garashi asked, aren't you afraid that if I agree with you, I will turn around and catch them? Nagato shook his head slightly. If I can't even trust you, then there is no one in this world who can be trusted. Even the members of Akatsuki didn't refute this. Even if they stand in a hostile position, they have to admit that there is no one more perfect than him in this world. I can promise you, but... Garashi looked to the side. Yahiko is right, others can be forgiven, but he, as the leader, naturally can't leave easily. Nagato was anxious, but Yahiko laughed loudly. Nagato, have you forgotten what you just said so quickly? Don't bargain. Konan said loudly, then I won't go. However, Yahiko and Nagato said in unison, no, you have to leave. However, Garashi was too lazy to listen to their bitter play. Nagato, pay attention to suppress the Jubi's consciousness. Hearing Garashi's voice, Nagato nodded the Jubi's large head and said, I will. Garashi took out a blank scroll, came to the top of the Jubi's head and pressed down on it. A trigram seal. The Jubi was removed from Nagato's body, degenerated into the appearance of the Gedo Mazo, and then sealed into the scroll. Nagato, on the other hand, fell from the air, exhausted. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but smile with relief. The war was over, and in the end, justice prevailed over evil. But at this moment, the barrier seemed to have gone out of control and completely opened. What's going on? Why did the barrier suddenly open? Be careful of the Akatsuki's conspiracy. Oh no, it's Uncle Aizen. Seeing everyone looking at him vigilantly, Nagato's heart tightened and he hurriedly explained, this is a misunderstanding, I can make him, Nagato said, and suddenly hugged his head and cried out. Konan Yahiko asked nervously, Nagato, what's wrong with you? Nagato suddenly looked up and Madara's voice came out of his mouth. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? The show has just begun. Seeing this, everyone couldn't believe it. Isn't he the caster of the Edo Tensei? How can he be controlled by Madara? Is this guy pretending to be a ghost? Garashi said in a deep voice, it should be the erosion of the Rinnegan. Nagato's consciousness may have been affected long ago, and coupled with the battle with the Jubi, it has greatly accelerated the erosion of his will. Nagato looked up to the sky and laughed like an Uchiha. As expected of Shimizu Izushi, you saw through my plan so quickly, but it's too late, he's already turned into my shape. Come on, let the war begin again. As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the Edo reincarnation moved once more. Not only that, the traces of the White Zetsu army appeared in the distant hillsides and jungles. Chapter 476. In the distance, the army of White Zetsu surrounded them. Although it was still very far away, the terrifying number made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. Why are these monsters acting together? Isn't this clearly organized? Didn't they say that these monsters are completely out of control? I know it must be because of Uchiha Madara. Didn't that guy Bordered Soil say that the creator of Black Zetsu and White Zetsu is Uchiha Madara? Looking at these monsters, everyone's scalp tingled. If these monsters were gathered together, a few large-scale ninjutsu would be enough to eliminate them, but the problem is that the area of the alliance is dozens of times larger than a single ninja village, and the front line is stretched many times, plus the barrier is out of control in all aspects. It means that the place they have to guard is expanded from Takajin to the entire alliance. With more than 2,000 of them, it's really difficult. After all, even hundreds of thousands of pigs will take several days and nights to kill, not to mention the army of white Zetsu with average strength above Chunin. What was even more troublesome was that the experts of the Edo Earth reincarnation had already begun to rush into the barrier. We must restart the barrier as soon as possible to block those monsters outside. Yes, it will take about 2 minutes for those monsters to rush over. This is our chance. Having said that, the enemy is obviously not so easy to stop. This is different from the previous time. The barrier that was broken by Susabuda was only broken by a big hole, but now it's completely broken, and the difficulty of intercepting is more than 10 times higher. This was especially true when the Edo Tensei were charging forward with their heads down. Seeing the critical situation, Garashi flew into the air, flew high enough to have a panoramic view of the entire alliance, then raised his hand and shot a large number of light bullets. Yasukani no Magatama. A rain of light poured down, bursting out terrifying energy fluctuations, engulfing all the enemies close to the barrier. Seeing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Anoki couldn't help but sigh. As an enemy he is as frightening as a nightmare, but as a teammate he is extremely reliable. Jiraiya muttered softly, Garashi is too abnormal. He's like a monster. Garashi wanted to continue attacking, but Nagato controlled the repulsive force to fly into the sky and stand in front of him. Who would have thought that the arrangements I've made for over 10 years would be destroyed by a brat like you? I didn't expect that you would still dare to stand in front of me. Garashi narrowed his eyes. I heard from Bordered Soil that you transplanted the Rinnegan into Nagato in order to resurrect yourself. Are you planning to show me your resurrection ability? Nagato's mouth twitched and he was silent. Did he have to say that he didn't want to revive for the time being? Just like that kick from before, if it wasn't for Edo Tensei, he would have been kicked to death. Under such circumstances, it would be better to maintain the Edo Tensei state. Of course, it was still necessary to undo the Edo Tensei and not be controlled by the caster. Although I can't let you experience resurrection, I can show you the perfect eye technique that can change reality. At this moment in the enchantment, no one knows when Tobirama broke away from the battle and came to the underground of the Uchiha Shrine. He found the scroll placed behind the stone tablet and unsealed the 5 Sharingan from the scroll. Then Tobirama, who was indirectly controlled by Madara, used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to teleport to Nagato's side and took out the Sharingan and handed it to Nagato. Then the tool that had completed the mission fell from a height of several thousand meters and fell to the ground with a plop, and was revived. Garashi's eyebrows twitched wildly. Is the revenge so obvious? Nagato said coldly, these Sharingan were originally prepared for Hashirama in the Battle of the Valley of the End. I didn't expect to use them on you. Izanagi? Garashi's eyes were strange. That is to say, you were going to use shameless tactics but later found that even if you can resurrect several times, you are not the opponent of the first Hokage, so you faked your death to get away? Nagato's face was a little embarrassed and he said, that's because Izanagi can't recover his chakra, and that bastard Hashirama used Mokutan to suck my chakra away. Ah. Garashi responded with a kind smile. However, Garashi's kind laughter was full of sarcasm in Madara's ears, and he couldn't help but be furious. Bastard, are you laughing at me? Although Nagato is not your opponent with these Sharingan, I can always hold you for a few minutes. Nagato was close to his limit in the previous battle, but Madara didn't care about this and forced his body to refine it. After all, the Uzumaki clan is famous for their chakra, so it's still possible to squeeze in. Soon the battle began again at a height of thousands of meters. Without Garashi's restraint, the battle below became difficult again. Although the alliance has been trying very hard to intercept, they still began to miss people. In a short span of 10 seconds, a few people had seized the opportunity to rush in. And those who rushed in either used their perception to search for the Jinchuriki, or wantonly destroyed, shouting the name of the Jinchuriki, forcing them to appear. The battlefield was chaotic and no one noticed that Bordered Soil, who was sent back to the village because of serious injuries, suddenly distorted his face, and a black stick came out of his body. Bordered Soil was awakened by a sharp pain. These things, are the black sticks made by Madara with Yin-Yang release? Damn it, when did it happen? In his mind, suddenly flashed the picture of him thanking Madara, but Madara said that there will be a day for him to repay his kindness. Was the seed planted by him at that time? Bordered Soil tried to make a sound to remind others. But at this moment, there was a familiar laughter in his mind. As expected of Madara-sama, I can't let you disturb him. Bordered Soil was frightened. Black Zetsu, you're not dead? Bordered Soil, you're still the same as before, stupid and cute. But talk about the old days later, you'd better sleep first. No, don't. Bordered Soil struggled, but soon fell into darkness. At the same time, inside the enchantment, Han and Killer Bee stayed in an ordinary house. Bastard! Do you want us to hide like a coward? Let those bastards call our names? Han shouted angrily. Killer Bee also didn't want to rap. The Jinchuriki is originally a weapon. How can you hide your weapon because you're worried about being stolen? The people who arranged the soundproof enchantment smiled bitterly and comforted them. Please calm down, your safety is not as simple as personal honor. If you let the Akatsuki get you, the whole world will be destroyed. Han said coldly. If I lose, I will commit suicide first, I will not fall into the hands of the enemy. Killer Bee also said, don't worry, we still have the courage to commit suicide. Chapter 477. Everyone in the class looked at each other, but the class leader refused. No, this is Garashi-sama's order. Hearing this, the two were a little irritable. Ah, don't you know how to be flexible? Now the situation has changed and the enemy has rushed into the barrier. Do we still have to watch here? The class leader firmly refused. No means no unless there is Garashi-sama's order. At this moment, the door suddenly opened. Everyone in the room suddenly became alert, and then they saw Bordered Soil, covered in blood and with a swollen face, came in. Uchiha Bordered Soil? What's wrong with you? Although they didn't have a good impression of Bordered Soil, everyone in the room relaxed a little. Uchiha Madara beat me. Bordered Soil explained and then said, it's no longer safe here. Garashi-sama asked me to transfer them to my space. Garashi-sama's order? The class leader was happy at first and then hesitated. How can you prove that this is Garashi-sama's order? The battlefield changes rapidly. Garashi-sama can only inform me. Do you want me to take out a written notice to you? This, he hasn't agreed yet, but Killer Bee and Han made a fuss again. No, I will never hide in there. This guy is a traitor. His words can't be trusted. Bordered Soil said with a straight face. This is Garashi-sama's order. At this time, someone in the class suddenly asked. Wait, didn't you always call Garashi-sama senior? Bordered Soil's face froze. Damn, how do I know what he called Shimizu Garashi? Madara cursed in his heart. After all, he just forcibly controlled Bordered Soil's body, not searched his memory. Seeing that everyone's eyes became alert, Madara knew that it would not work to trick them into going in by themselves. Even a sneak attack would be difficult because of their vigilance. He must give them a strong dose of medicine. Because that man rejected my confession of love. I don't want to call him that anymore. Bordered Soil said painfully as if it brought back a certain memory. What? Everyone's mind was greatly shaken, and they were directly dumbfounded. Madara took this opportunity to quickly suck Han and Killer Bee into the space with Mangekyo, and then let Tobirama, who was on standby outside, take him away. This series of unforeseen events caused everyone's minds to shut down, and they were unable to react in time. After a long while, someone could not help but ask, could it be that Bordered Soil betrayed Sir Garashi because of love? The squad leader of the enchantment class glared at him fiercely. This is clearly Akatsuki's ruse, quickly informed Garashi-sama. But on the way out, even he was muttering to himself. Could it be that hate was really born out of love? After all, with Lord Garashi's charm, it was not impossible for both men and women to be attracted to him. However, there was no need for them to inform him. In the sky, the bright light was like a sea of light, drowning Nagato. 1,000 strikes per second. Even if he forcibly activated the Tomb of Reincarnation and used the Shadow Defense, under this powerful attack, he died once in a few seconds. In less than half a minute, Nagato was already dead. His flame-like red hair turned white and he laughed wildly while coughing blood. It's really a storm-like attack. Fortunately, I finally caught up. I won't leave this last life for you. After that, Tobirama suddenly appeared beside him, and he was also drowned in the sea of light, and his body exploded instantly. But after all, Tobirama was the Edo Tensei, and the next moment he disappeared with Nagato with the incomplete body that was constantly repairing. The sea of light calmed down and converged into a tall figure. Looking at the place where Nagato disappeared, Garashi thought, is Black Zetsu going to stay here this time? In his mind, Black Zetsu must have a purpose for faking his death. There is no reason not to intervene in such an important occasion. Or did he see Madara regain the initiative and put his hope on Madara? However, it doesn't matter if he doesn't plan to come out, he will live in my shadow forever. After abandoning these distracting thoughts, Garashi released his perception, but he could no longer perceive the coordinates of the bordered soil. Erased the flying thunder god jutsu I left on the bordered soil? Garashi was not too surprised. It's normal to sense the jutsu left by Nidame, the creator of the flying thunder god. However, if you think you can get rid of me like this, you are too naive. Garashi whispered and expanded his perception infinitely. His perception ability is extremely powerful, and he can listen to the sound of all things in sage mode, and almost half of the ninja world is included in his perception. The next moment he smiled slightly. Found you. At the same time, in a cave on the border of the land of lightning. Looking at Nagato and the bordered soil standing in front of him, Madara's eyes were slightly gloomy. Although Nagato's fusion with the Jubi gave him a chance, he also let the Geto Mazo be sealed by Shimizu Garashi. In this case, even if he is ready to resurrect the nine-tailed beast, he is still short of the last step. Madara frowned. It seems that I can only retreat first, wait for Shimizu Garashi to relax his vigilance, and then use the shadow of the Tomb of Reincarnation to steal the seal scroll. Although it's a bit shameful to use the exclusive ability of the Rinnegan to steal things, he can't care so much. I'll let you be happy for a while. Just when Madara made a decision, a strong light that almost blinded his eyes suddenly broke out. Madara couldn't help but close his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he saw Garashi standing beside Tobirama and sealing him. No. Even with Madara's temperament, he had a feeling of desperation at this moment. The other side sealed Tobirama at the first time, apparently worried that he would let Tobirama escape with them. As for the space transfer of the bordered soil, he knew very well that the ability of the bordered soil will have a certain delay in transferring other living things. This delay may not be a big deal for the average person, but in front of a strong enemy like Shimizu Garashi, a little delay is a fatal flaw. It seems that we lost. Madara naturally won't compromise and smiled. But I'm a little curious, how did you find us here? Garashi shrugged. Sorry, I don't have the habit of explaining to the enemy. There's no way to explain it. Madara narrowed his eyes. I asked Tobirama to take us to transfer many times in a row until we reached the border of the Land of Lightning. We are separated from the center of the war by more than half of the ninja world, but you still locked us in the first place, indicating that your perception is extremely powerful, and the range of your perception covers almost half of the ninja world. In other words, you actually have the ability to uproot the Akatsuki organization, but you haven't done so. Why? You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.